Live at the 6th hole, Scott Hoch.
34-year-old Scott Hoch playing in his 6th Masters. This is a par 3, 215 yards, and he'll have a sizable putt. The hole is cut in the back right-hand side, and Hoch will have to come up over a knoll. Par 3 playing today at 215 yards, and here is Ben Crenshaw, who had a one-stroke lead at the end of the 3rd round, which was completed this morning. Ben just bogeyed the 5th hole to go to 2 under for the tournament. He bogeyed the 18th this morning. Here's the leaderboard. Seve Ballesteros, Scott Hoch tied for the lead. Mike Reid, steady golf thus far, alone in 3rd. Faldo and Crenshaw at -2. And Paul Azinger playing the 9th right now is at even par. Crenshaw finished his round and went back to his room and napped from 11 to 1:30 this afternoon, getting ready for the final round and in quest of his 2nd Masters championship. Just off the green to the right side. So Crenshaw off the green, Hoch with a sizable putt.
Bobby Jones once wrote, "I love fishing and hunting and trap shooting and ping pong and chess and pool and billiards and driving a motor car. And at times I love golf when I can get the shots going somewhere near right." There was never a golfer like him. In his prime, if you picked Jones against the field, you'd have been right more often than not. He was 28 years old when he won the 4 major titles of his day. What he did was so astounding, they didn't even know it was the Grand Slam until that phrase became popular years later. And when it was over, he retired and built a golf course. It was as unique as the man behind it. And though its tournament decides no national championship, it has long been recognized as one of sport's major titles and a part of the modern Grand Slam. The course is the Augusta National. The tournament is the Masters. CBS started televising it in 1956, but the first live drama we captured was in 1960 when Arnold Palmer came to the 18th hole tied with Ken Venturi.
Here it comes with a 5 or 6 iron. The ball on the green and within approximately 3 feet of the pin. A magnificent shot by Arnold Palmer.
In the history of the tournament, no one had ever come to 18 needing birdie to win and made one.
Arnold Palmer is the Masters champion of 1960. He has birdied the last 2 holes to catch and then move ahead of Ken Venturi.
28 years went by, and sure, others birdied 18, but never for an outright win. And then last year, Sandy Lyle came to 18 tied with Mark Calcavecchia.
Watch this. Watch this. Not over yet. Watch this. Here it goes. There it goes.
Like Palmer in 1960, it was birdie to win. Bobby Jones also wrote this: "You learn that your most formidable adversary is yourself. You win or lose according to your ability to withstand the pressure." Welcome to the Augusta National Golf Club and the 1989 Masters.
Back at the 6th hole, Ben Crenshaw, 2nd shot. Hole high, but off the green. And about 3 feet coming back. Very treacherous 6th hole. Elevated green. There is Scott Hoch, who, as we said, is playing in his 6th Masters championship. Ben Crenshaw in his 18th. Byron Nelson birdied this hole, 77-year-old Byron Nelson, on Thursday when he and Gene Sarazen and Sam Snead opened the 1989 Masters. Hoch has not played particularly well here in his previous 5 appearances. Missed the cut last year. His highest finish ever, as a matter of fact, was a 27th in '83. Let's go quickly to 9.
Nick Faldo, 2 under. And only 2 behind. Stay with us. Back to 6.
Scott Hoch for birdie. So he'll remain tied for the lead with Seve Ballesteros. Ballesteros with an amazing start today. The birdies at 1, 2, 4, and 5. Now Crenshaw. Ben, who is acknowledged as perhaps the best putter playing the game today, just 3-putted the 5th hole, was on the front edge of the green. Went by the hole and missed a 4-footer coming back. That was his only bogey of the day in the afternoon round. He had that bogey at 18 this morning. Crenshaw might need something in the 60s today because of the pace that's been set by Ballesteros. Hoch, Reid, Faldo. 4 previous times he's had final rounds in the 60s here. The last time was when he won in 1984. Got it. So Crenshaw stays 2 off the pace. At -2, the lead held by Ballesteros and Scott Hoch.
CBS Sports is proud to present the 1989 Masters Tournament.
So this is Augusta National, where nature's soft hand has sculpted a harmony of beauty and color. It is a landscape sprinkled with azaleas and dogwoods that make this course a sight that must be seen as well as played. And this is the final round of a tournament unlike any other, the Masters. But the picture painted here has been altered by an unkind weather the first 3 days, everything from lightning and thunder, wind, rain, and cold. Right now, temperatures in the low 60s, and it has just started to rain within the last 15 minutes in Augusta. Right now in the final round, Seve Ballesteros on his 32nd birthday today, throwing a surprise on the rest of the party, as he is tied for the lead with Scott Hoch. Mike Reid is 1 back. Nick Faldo was 2 over after 54 holes. He's 4 under on this final round through 8 holes to move within 2. Ben Crenshaw has dropped a shot. After the 3rd round, he's also at 2 under. Paul Azinger making a move at even par. Jody Mudd as well at even, along with Mark O'Meara and Tom Kite. Jeff Sluman, Chip Beck, and Greg Norman. Norman birdied the 1st hole to move back to even, but bogeyed the 3rd to drop back to +1. Ken Green's at that mark as well. Lee Trevino putting together a good round here in the final round, as is Fred Couples, who at one point was even par before bogeys at 12 and 13. He was 6 under on his round at one point, including a 31 on the front. And Jack Nicklaus, 2 under thus far on the 4th round. Right now, let's go back out to Pat Summerall with the coverage at number 9.
Larry Mize and Nick Faldo. And Faldo just 2 behind. As the rain, I'm sure you can hear, starts to pelt down. And a very difficult week weather-wise. Faldo. The expression says it. He remains 2 under. Let's go back down to Jim Nance.
And thank you, Pat, and welcome everybody to CBS Sports' final round coverage of the 53rd Masters. You know, it's just a real honor to be sitting alongside the man who won the 1973 British Open, was in contention so many times here at Augusta, Tom Weiskopf. And Tom, weather permitting, we're shaping up to have another classic Masters finish.
And again, Jim, the weather is changing, and it is going to have an effect on how they play the backside, I think, this afternoon. Seve, who is playing the 8th hole, is in complete control of his game and has got it really going.
Let's go out to the 8th hole with Gary McCord.
Thank you, Jim. Seve for his birdie. That would have been the 5th of the day. He birdied, as Vern Lundquist said, 1, 2, 4, and 5. Also this morning, finishing his roundup, he birdied 14, 15, and 17. So that's 7 birdies out of 13 holes on his birthday, and that's quite a present. And let's go forward to 9.
Greg Norman. Become much more deliberate. Yesterday made a run at things, and today the magic hasn't come together. Back to 8.
For his par, remains at 4 under, and let's go back to 7.
Ben Crenshaw, that's his second shot with just a short iron to this 360 yards straightaway par 4. Great shot is played, and he needed to make something happen after that uncharacteristic 3 putts on the 5th green. He's been so much in command of himself all week. One expects him to be there at the finish. Scott Hoch has a similarly short iron shot. You only see the bottom, the top half, I beg your pardon, of the flagstick here. It's a little shallow plateau green with those bunkers virtually surrounding it. And today the flagstick is placed 6 yards from the front of the green to the left-hand side. It has caused some players to have fits this week. Notably, Greg Norman made a double bogey here in his first round, and you think where he might be but for that. Scott Hoch then. That's 100 yards exactly. Well, he's got a much more difficult putt down the slope. And back to the studio in Jim Nance.
All right, well, thank you, Ben. And this was early now in the 4th round. Seve at the 2nd hole, the par 5, and his 3rd shot, Tom Weiskopf, did not clear the bunker.
Not a good shot, Jim. Now he's put himself in a very difficult position on a fairly easy hole to birdie today.
And this is the kind of stuff of which Masters are won and legends are built. A birdie at the 2nd hole for Seve, after having already birdied the 1st hole as well. That moved him to 2 under. Now, after a par on the 3rd hole, we pick up Seve on the 4th green, the par 3, Tom.
This is a very long par 3, 215 yards, and he played his tee shot to within 40 feet of the hole. Not a makeable putt by any means, but watch this.
That looked like Ben Crenshaw in 10 back in 1984 when he won his green jacket all the way across the green, and another birdie for Ballesteros. And now at the 5th hole, difficult par 4. Another birdie effort here for Ballesteros.
From about 35 feet.
And Seve is tied for the lead at the moment with Scott Hoch. Ballesteros and Hoch at 4 under par. 1 shot back is Mike Reid. 2 back, Nick Faldo and Ben Crenshaw. All near the top in the final round at the Masters.
Ballesteros and Hoch tied at -4. Mike Reid is 3 under. Nick Faldo and Ben Crenshaw are -2, and Jody Mudd is even. And that's the way it stands as we are in the final round. Let's go out to 7.
And the birdie putt of Scott Hoch down the slope. Well, that's very disappointing, but Ben Crenshaw makes the birdie, moves to 3 under par, just 1 off the pace, and we'll go forward to the 9th.
Greg Norman for birdie. Just a moment ago. That brings him to even. So again, the changes on top of that leaderboard. Ballesteros and Hoch at -4. Crenshaw and Reid at 3. Nick Faldo at -2. Jody Mudd is even, as Greg Norman, Mark O'Mara, and Tom Kite join him at that figure. And Jeff Sluman and Chip Beck at +1, along with Ken Green and Trevino, who just finished, +2, and Couples coming up 18 at the moment, with Frost, Watkins, and Jack Nicklaus, the 6-time champion. And here at 9, Ken Green. Well done. The umbrellas are out again as the rain pelts down. Ballesteros, 120 yards away. Amazing touch. Amazing concentration. As you can see, this gallery lining the fairway at 9. And a very astute gallery it is. Seve. I know he liked it. And well, he should. Wonderful shot. And again, look at the leaderboard that has Ballesteros and Hoch atop, both at -4. Then Crenshaw, Mike Reid at 3 under, just 1 behind. Ballesteros, Reid, and Hoch now all at -4. Let me ask Tom Weiskopf, who's down in our studio, a question. Ben Crenshaw seemed to be in total control of his tournament as they completed the 3rd round this morning. How does it affect him to see these guys approaching and catching and almost taking over, Tom?
Well, Pat, you must remain patient, and you can't let someone else affect your game. You have to stay in your plan. I think number 7 was a very significant hole for Ben because he had not played well up until that hole. Now, this has turned things around and given a little bit of a momentum back to Ben because he's going to play 2 potentially sound birdie holes at 8 and 9 for him. He's in the driver's seat still because he's such an excellent putter, and he has played so well. But the first 6 holes, it was a little shaky. But that's natural. There's a lot of pressure on these players. He just can't afford, like all of them, not to make a stupid mistake.
Tom, what about that delay? Vern Lundquist was saying before that he had gone home and taken a 2.5-hour nap. What sort of effect will that have?
Well, you know, he had to get up early this morning, Pat, and you build up just to finish your 3rd round, as he did, and he didn't finish positively with a bogey at the last. So I think what he wanted to do is just forget about what happened, relax, and then get his game plan going and dream about making birdies and eagles, I guess. But I think the complexion of the day is going to change with this rain, Pat, right now.
Here's Ken Green. You see Ballesteros watching. Could help him. Again, the difficulties, if you were with us yesterday, of keeping the equipment dry and keeping your concentration and not being too worried about the weather and the playing conditions. Now Ballesteros almost on the same line. There's Ken Green. This would be for the lead for him. Twice a champion. And perhaps, in the eyes of many, the world's premier player. Never a doubt. The leader, Seve Ballesteros. And the gallery moves to watch the leader as Ballesteros heads for 10. He is -5. Reid and Hoch at -4. Crenshaw at 3. Nick Faldo 2 and Greg Norman even. Amazing when you get to a championship arena, the champions appear atop the board. Ballesteros at -5, Reid 4 with Hoch, and then Crenshaw and Faldo. And we go to 11.
Another man enjoying a good day, Azinger for birdie. So with that, Azinger pulls to even par, 3 under on his round today. Just 5 back as we go forward to 16.
That's the tee shot of Jody Mudd on its way. He's just missed a very clear birdie opportunity at the 15th, but he's got a very clear one here at the 16th, and he is at level par, 5 under for his round today as we go back to the 10th.
Out in the fairway, Mark O'Meara set to play. Mark is even par today, 1 over for the tournament. Looked as if he might make a little move and then slowed down. Even par yesterday. Good swing. Boy, what a good swing. The pin today is about 19 steps back from the front edge. Which put Mark at about 185. Perfect pin position, as you saw, right? Excuse me, perfect position where Mark drove his ball, right in the middle. And Norman set to play from approximately 170. Probably a 7-iron. Good shot for Greg, bringing in real high. Little draw on the ball. He's got these new waggles going for him. Seems to set him in pretty comfortably, though. You can see how Greg drove the ball right up in the air. Right at the hole, and this may go in. It did not release. Boy, I had visions of that one jumping in. Right under the hole. Greg wants this tournament. You know he's just grinding to get him in the hole. We'll go to 8.
And now the third shot of Ben Crenshaw. 1 birdie, 1 bogey. Currently 1 shot behind, 2 shots behind Seve Ballesteros. Ben's probably got about 60, 70 yards. He's taking that up real high. Beautiful shot right underneath the flagstick. And now earlier, Scott Hoch. Just a little knockdown shot, and you can see where his ball lands. And that will also be a birdie putt. Scott Hoch, one shot behind, and let's go to 16.
Great birdie for Jody Mudd, and he looks as if he can keep his composure over the last 2 holes, he could set an early target that could make them all quake a little. And how he'll regret he had no more than a 6-footer at the 15th for another birdie. He 1 under par, back to the 9th.
Still surveying. Mike Reid and Tom Kite. That's Mike Reid waiting for Tom Kite, who's over in the woods, to bring things together. And he hasn't quite reached his decision yet. Perhaps he's asking for a ruling. Back at 8.
And now the last twosome of the day. Scott Hoch with birdies on 2 and 5. Start off at 2 under par. He's now -4, 1 shot back of Seve. And we're getting real close to having a fun back 9 where this whole tournament starts. Look down this leaderboard, and boy, there's a lot of different personalities lined up. Seve in the lead, tied with Mike Reid, who is so quiet. Scott Hoch, who is up and down. Ben Crenshaw, very consistent. Nick Faldo, very consistent player. And you can see this, -7 on the par 5. Scott is a fairly long player. He hits the ball very high and cuts it, hits it left or right. So we can watch him on this backside, you know, especially the 13th hole, which calls for a hook. Very good wedge player. Hot and cold putter. If he can get it going, he can really burn you. Hasn't been in this position too often. He's 6 Masters. He hasn't shown much before. Let's go to 10 real quick.
Mark O'Meara with about a 30-foot putt straight up the hill. Break to his left. Get up, get up. Now we'll go back to 8.
Scott Hoch for a tie for the lead. He misread it. When they go back to look at the line like that, it wasn't a mishit, it was just a misread. Just enough rain to dampen these greens up to make them so the players can go ahead and attack them. I think we'll see some low scores here if we don't get any harder rain. Now Ben Crenshaw should get a pretty good line from that putt if he already didn't know it. Of course, Carl Jackson, his caddy, has been here. He and Ben have been together for 14 years, so they know what they're doing. They'll both pick out their line. They'll go back and they'll talk about it back at Ben's ball. Wouldn't it be nice to caddy for Ben Crenshaw and line these putts up? Have this guy. Okay, Ben, how about 3.5 centimeters outside the left edge? And the man can hit it there just about every time. There he is, weighing his putter. Currently at -3, 2 shots behind Seve. This is an uphill putt, so it will not get away from Ben as far as the speed is concerned, so he'll have a pretty good go at it. Bingo. 1 shot behind our leader. Seve Ballesteros has Ben Crenshaw as he goes to the 9th hole. And let's go find Seve. I think he's in trouble. 10th hole.
Greg Norman ready to go for birdie. That's in all the way on a hole which has cost Greg at least 2 Masters I can think of. In '86 and '87 he played this hole 4 over par. He got one back this time. We'll go back to 11.
Second shot for Nick Faldo, way back in the fairway. he hit a tree off the tee. And we go back to 10.
Back up on the hill, you see Seve. Obviously, he turned the ball just a little too quickly to the left and hit the tree and just dropped down in some rather bare ground there. Seems to be looking around for a place to drop the ball. I'd be curious to know what the ruling is. It's not a paved cart path. Tom Weiskopf, you have any thoughts on that? That looks to be just trotting down to me.
Yeah, he's a little bit unlucky, obviously, with his lies. Bob, I would like to bring up this one point, though. The 2 times that Seve has won the Masters, he has played the backside very poorly. That's Pat Summerall at number 9, though, first.
That's Mike Reid. He was 145 yards out. Good shot. What you would expect of Mike Reid. Back to 10.
Go ahead, Tom, with your thought on Seve on the back 9.
Well, they never forget about those things, Bob. And, you know, he's played so well. Now he's hit a very poor tee shot. Probably quick hooked it or pulled it off the tee to the left.
All right.
He's trying to figure out where he wants to get this next ball where then he can play to the green, because he can't even come close to getting the ball down in front of the green because of the big bunker at the end of the fairway. So he's going to leave himself a very, very long 3rd shot.
Right. I know in sitting here on this 10th hole the last few years, Seve's made a lot of bogeys on this hole to lose. As a matter of fact, of course, he made the one to lose to Larry Mize in the playoff in '87. Now he's getting a ruling. And
Bob?
Yes.
The only thing that I can think that he might get a drop from would be the unusual damage rule.
Steve Melnick, what about this ruling here, please?
Bob, they have a local rule which they observe here, and I think Tom hit it on the head. It is for unusual damage caused by spectators walking in that area. So I think Seve recognized that and is taking advantage of it.
I know we play something, you know, similar to, say, truck tire damage or something of that nature during a tournament, when you have instance to have heavy vehicles out on the course and whatnot. There you see the rules official pointing to the nearest relief for Seve. Now Ken Green is questioning this. What? Ken doesn't seem to be very pleased with the ruling. There you see the graphic, and there's Seve's drive. He just hooked it. Drive is approximately 250 yards, and so that leaves Seve a lot of work. I would be guessing here, but I'll say he'll lay it up short of the bunker. Of course, Seve's been known to invent some rather terrific recovery shots. Pondering this, I know he's entitled to just the nearest relief right there. Trying to figure out what kind of shot do I want to play. Do I want to gamble going straight ahead, or do I want to pitch it out? I think that the rules official has just spoken to him in reference to that. He's taking a little bit of time, and the rules official says, I think you need to start playing. Sure, Seve is saying to himself and the rules official, wait a minute now, partner, I'm trying to win the Masters here. We were talking a while ago with Tom Weiskopf about how would Ben Crenshaw think about guys going past him, and I was looking today, just today since we played and they had to finish up, but Seve's 8 under and Ben is 1 over, so that's a 9-shot swing. Tom Weiskopf, you think maybe Seve's asked for another ruling, perchance?
Bob, that's his prerogative. You can ask for another ruling if you don't agree with the ruling that you've been given the first time. Now, if that happens, that official, the first official's ruling, doesn't make any difference. That's voided. He must then live with the decision of the second rule. He can't make a choice of which is best.
Right.
Mike Reid, yes, sir. Mike Reid is now tied for the lead. Again, the rain continues, but Seve Ballesteros has asked for another ruling. And as Tom Weiskopf just pointed out, when the second officials get there, or official, he must live with whatever they say. In the meantime, back at 9, Tom Kite. He's not through yet. Even par. The intensity of the rain has picked up a little bit, and the difficulty of keeping equipment dry and concentrating on the work ahead has perhaps become a little bit more difficult. Although when you get in a situation like this, you're sort of oblivious. Bogey for Kite. +1 he is. In the meantime, Ben Crenshaw and Scott Hoch. Let's go back to 10.
The gentleman on your left is Michael Banalik from the RNA. And of course, he's the captain of the RNA and a member of the rules official here.
There's no crowd damage?
The RNA, of course, is the ruling body, along with the USGA, the ruling body of golf. Back to number 9 with Ben Crenshaw.
His second shot. And nicely done. He was 145 yards back. Scott Hoch is playing with him. We go back to 10.
So the decision is that Seve is in fact not allowed to move the ball. I'm not particularly sure what happened here. He put a tee down to mark his intent of nearest relief, and they did not give it to him. So I think Ken Green was right after all. He's just going to chip out. And you see the ball right out in the middle of the fairway. You can still save par from there. Those are the kinds of things you must do sometimes. You must bite your lip and say, I made a mistake. I'll chip it out. Walk right down there and hit my 9-iron 4 feet from the hole and make a par. Ken Green set to play from approximately 185. Pin right in the center of the green today. And Ken's left it short and the bottom of the green, a makeable birdie putt, however. Ken's having a rather boring morning here. He's at 1 over par. We'll go forward to 11.
Greg Norman, after a big tee shot here, about 180 yards to the flagstick. Just 4 shots out of the lead. Norman's birdied the last 2 holes. Good play here at 11 with a flagstick hard against the pond on the left. The last thing you want to do here at A-Bend Corners, make a mistake as we go to 9.
Scott Hoch just 1 behind. Scott 125 yards away and a fine shot. Back to 10.
Seve trying to decide on his yardage. He has approximately 110 to the front edge. Most important, it's amazing how this man can make the mistakes that we've seen in 4 days, knocking it in the water at 13, playing it, hitting it too easy, back in the water, 4 putting, and tied for the lead. Shows you what persistence this young man has. Desire, of course, must be part of the story. Loves the golf course, loves the tournament, loves to play. Taking a little deep breath there and a big exhale. Wants to make a par. Oh, and he's lifted out to the right and short. So a rather tough par coming up for Seve. Seve and number 10 do not have a love affair going. He's bogeyed this hole a lot of times. We'll go back to number 9.
And the last 2 of the day, Crenshaw and Hoch. The umbrella's out. The rain is steady, but not too hard at the moment. Back to 12.
Faldo, tee shot 165 yards. Flag stick back right. Good play. Faldo coming off a bogey at 11. He's at 1 under as we go back to 9.
And Crenshaw ready. Somewhat uncharacteristic. He doesn't usually. I guess it's correct to say that he misread it. He doesn't usually do that. Now Hoch. Ballesteros and Mike Reid tied at -5. But Seve in trouble at 10. Tie may not last. Hoch with a chance to go 5 under. Tied. Scott Hoch, Ballesteros, and Reid all at -5. Crenshaw just 1 behind. Back to 10.
Seve's been taking a good long look at this. His ball is not actually on the green, but he has no real problem with the putting surface there. Tom Weiskopf, you have a comment on the ruling.
Well, what we've been told is Ken Green had a very similar situation at the second hole and was denied relief. And it is his responsibility to protect the field. And if he thinks something is not right, then he can ask for a decision.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And we can confirm that Green did ask for the second ruling. He told the rules official that he wanted someone else to come over and have a look at Seve's problem. So Seve will make a bogey and drop back to 4 under. It's not often you see a circumstance like that, but Tom Weiskopf is right. You owe it to the rest of the field to question whether or not that particular official made the correct call, even in lieu of what Steve Melnick mentioned in the unusual damage. Ken Green putting now for birdie, and that's short. I'm not sure that, well, I am sure that Ken is not happy with what he had to do there, but he felt certain that he must do it. He taps in for his par. Remain 1 over. Those are hard things to do, Tom Weiskopf, when you feel like you're calling a ruling against your fellow competitor.
Well, but the decision was consistent, and that's what I liked about it.
I've noticed, too, today that Seve has that putter much more level on the ground than he had the other day when we saw him putting with the toe way off the ground. He was making all those bogeys. So Mike Reid, our co-leader at 5 under, along with Scott Hoch, and Seve with that bogey falls 1 shot behind, tied with Ben Crenshaw.
We are back at the Masters in the final round. Co-leaders Scott Hoch and Mike Reid. Reid in his 13th year as a pro. He's won twice. And Scott Hoch, he's been a pro since 1979 out of Wake Forest, a former runner-up as the U.S. Amateur and runner-up at the British Amateur. And Scott Hoch has won 3 times as a pro. This is Mike Reid at 10, and let's go out there again with Bob Murphy.
My pal Radar. We call him that because he hits it straight down the middle, right on the green. And today, making a few putts. And another good shot. Oh, this one's released, though. Safely on, however. Mike has really played well. He made 2 birdies finishing this morning early. And now followed that up with 4 birdies here this afternoon. There you see Mike's scorecard on the front side. Birdied number 2, bogeyed 3. Good birdie at 6, a hard par 3. And birdie at 8 and 9, and we'll go to 12.
Faldo for birdie.
Come on, boys. Do it, boys.
Well, you hear Andy Prodger, his caddy, urging it on. But Faldo, who at one time looked as though he were here to stay at the lead, still only 4 back. Last year had the best record among all players in the major championships. And let's go to 18.
And that Jody Mudd started the day +5, is now 1 under. And he has this putt left for birdie. He came from, well, nobody mentioned it. And now he's in the red figures to 10.
Back on the tee, Scott Hoch. Had a good little go at that one. And it's just perfect right down the middle. Fall right into the flat. 170 yards from the front edge. Beautiful drive. And we'll go forward to 12.
Norman tee shot 165 yards away. He made 2 here yesterday. Superb shot once again. So Greg Norman 2 under par on his round today, 1 under in all, 4 back, and he has excited this crowd a number of years with his brilliant play during the final round. 12th, the gorgeous middle leg of Amen Corner here. Mark O'Meara continues his steady play. He's even par today, 1 over in all. Good play nevertheless. It was Herbert Warren Wind who gave the name Amen Corner to this wonderful stretch of holes in 1958. Let's go to 18.
And Jody Mudd. moment ago for birdie. Back to 10.
Back on the tee. Ben Crenshaw, good hole for Ben. Likes to play a little draw. People love it. And they love Ben, too. That's what you call playing partner golf. You can have a little walk and talk to each other. Back to 18.
Jody Mudd's par putt. So he shoots 66 and goes to 1 under. Outstanding round, 211.
Ken Green's second shot on the way. Difficult flag stick for Ken's left to right shot. And he took the safe way out here. It's an intimidating shot from on top of that hill. Ballesteros now, after a long drive down the heart of the fairway. He plays right to left. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make a good play at the flagstick. The youngest winner here, 1980. In 1983, when he won, he got off to that blistering start. He was 4 under par through the first 4 holes and nearly destroyed the field. But there you see Mike Reid and Scott Hoch, 2 unlikely but yet 2 worthy leaders at 5 under par. They enjoy that thin 1-shot margin over 2 former winners, Ballesteros and Crenshaw. And you see how the players have played Amen Corner. Amen Corner consists of holes 11, 12, and 13. 11 and 12, you simply try to make par. And at the par 5 13th, you gamble in hopes to make birdie or better. If you look at that host of 4 players, Reid easily the shortest of the foursome, and yet has played Amen Corner the best of them all this week. Ballesteros, probably a 5-iron. Starts it right as if to hit a high draw. Home safely, no mistake here. Mike Reid at 5 under par, joined at the top by Scott Hoch at that number. They enjoy a 1-shot margin over Seve Ballesteros and Ben Crenshaw.
Well, they said Mike Reid could never win at Firestone, the site of the World Series of Golf. It was a long hitter's course, but last year, Mike Reid won there in a sudden death playoff against Tom Watson. And this is Reid at 10 for a par. Bob Murphy.
Oh, and safely in. Mike says, oh. What a story this will be. One of the absolute nice men on the tour. Just rolling with the punches.
Scott Hoch tied for the lead. His last win was in 1984, 5 years. Bob Murphy.
Scott, from his leaning there, appears to have pulled it, and yes, he did, but not bad. He's got about 35 feet and a very makeable putt, slightly uphill from there. Tough approach shot, this, because your feet are below the ball, which normally gives you the feeling you're going to hit a draw. And so many times we see the players leave it way out to the right. Crenshaw needs to make a move now. Forward to 12.
Greg Norman to pull within 3. So many people have missed it on that side. Back to 10.
Ben from approximately 180 yards. Probably a 5-iron. Good shot for Ben. Little draw. Right up in the air. And good birdie position under the hole, approximately 20 feet. And can slide back to 5 under. So we got a lot of action here on 10, as we predicted earlier in the day. We'll go back to Jim.
So 4 players right at the top of the leaderboard. Reid and Hoch tied for the lead. Ballesteros and Crenshaw shot back. And then another 3 shots behind that, Faldo and Greg Norman as he approaches the 13th, the par 5, where he could pick up a birdie. Jody Mudd after the 66 at 1 under par. Beck and Azinger are even par for the tournament. Couples, 67 today. And Ken Green at +1. Jose Alonsobal fellow countryman of Seve Ballesteros at +2. And let's go back out to Seve at the 11th hole with Steve Melnick.
All right, Jim, about 30 feet for birdie. Ballesteros, who has the 3rd lowest scoring average in Masters history, behind only Watson and Nicklaus. Man whose game is perfectly suited to the wonderful subtleties here at Augusta National as we go forward to 13.
Nick Faldo shot from 230 yards and right out of the blueprint. A hanging lie, takes it left to right, and watch what the swale and the slopes do right here. He's 45 feet away. Catches the slope. Brings it back. In his face now with only a 15-footer for an eagle that can put him 3 under par. A very gutsy play from the fairway. Back to 11 now.
You know, Ken Green gives you the feeling that he almost has a disdain for the traditions here at Augusta. But if you look at his caddy bib, it's caddy bib number 3, which means he was the 3rd player to register here. That would tell you otherwise. So with that par, he remains at 1 over. Incidentally, the number 1 caddy bib is reserved for the defending champion each year. And speaking of champions, there's a 6-time champion right there at the 17th hole. Ballesteros gets what he wanted when he stepped on the 11th tee, and that is par. Ballesteros, who seems to almost play the game with a combination of fear and arrogance. We saw him yesterday fritter away shots. Today he's almost taken the course and by the throat and is just shaking it as we go to 17.
Jack Nicklaus, 2nd shot, 140 yards out. Currently at 3 over for the tournament, 1 under for today's round. Pin is back right. Safely on with an uphill putt of 25-30 feet for birdie for Jack. And back to the 10th.
Scott Hoch, who in the morning paper said he was just a bit nervous at Augusta this year, but he says, if I get out there and get going, I play myself right out of that nervous tension. So between finishing yesterday's round this morning and the 4th round now, he's made 5 birdies. That'll ease the tension. Oh, a good putt. Real nice putt. You don't want to get too brave on those. Sometimes here, especially here at Augusta on these fast greens, you get it uphill and you say, boy, I can make this one. I can give it a good roll, and you rip it 3 or 4 feet past and your legs begin to tremble. Scott playing very well. A good iron player, an exceptional iron player. Said he's driving the ball better this week. That puts him in play. Ben Crenshaw getting ready to putt. Here we'll see Ben's front 9. Bogey at number 5 where he 3-putted. And then a nice birdie at 7 and 8. Boy, I remember a putt Ben Crenshaw made on number 10 green in 1984 when he won the tournament. If it was a foot, it was 80 feet up and around, and what a stroke. This putt will fall slightly right to left for Ben. To tie for the lead. Just got it outside and it didn't break at all. You can see Ben talking to himself a little bit there. Ben will do that. We'll go to 13.
Watching Nick Faldo walk from the cup to the ball, it's under 15 feet. And when you see players like Faldo, Norman, and Ballesteros, you see difference between conservative and aggressive. He is not using the bullseye anymore. He has changed putters. If this changes, is to go 3 under par, second eagle of the day. Backs off for a second. The first eagle was by Ian Woosman, and Crenshaw made par 10. But when you see the players out there, Faldo was 230 yards, and you can see the difference between conservative and aggressive players. Conservative players will stay out there and say, I better lay up, I might make 6. And aggressive players say, I've got to go for it, I need eagle. And he was played left to right. He played absolutely a perfect shot. And there's Faldo's front 9, 32. Bogey at 11. This for eagle. Don't give the hole away, or it'll stay out to the right. That ball was shoved and a little bit cut because that ball does not move that way. So it's a disappointing, as you might say, birdie, because eagle would have put him 3 under and 2 shots out of the lead as we go to 17.
Jack Nicklaus, and this is for birdie. Maybe. Absolutely. And who will forget when he thrilled us all here 3 years ago in 1986 as he took the lead for the first time. And we go to 12.
Ballesteros tee shot, taking the conservative route, the safe route, just puts it on the green. He's content to try to 2-putt from about 60 feet. You have to admire Ballesteros. You know his ego wants to fire at the flagstick. You know his game plan was to always aim left. 86, 87. He was in the same position as he played amen corner, did the same thing then. Here he is, just 1 shot behind Reid and Hoch. Ballesteros tied with Crenshaw at 4 under. Faldo with that birdie at 13 pulls within 3. Greg Norman still hanging in there at 1 under par, just 4 back. The game's most exciting player seems to be a constant threat and have a permanent place on the leaderboard here at the Masters. Well, therein lies the problem of having such a long approach putt. He simply took 5 off his scorecard by aiming left. To 13.
Greg Norman drove his ball up into the gallery in the trees and didn't have any chance to reach the green, laid up, and he's now just about 65, 70 yards, and this is the most important shot on the back 9. Being 1 under par, he has to make birdie to be able to get himself in position to make a strong finish. He has to make 4 here, and he can put some bite on the ball.
A little late, Mark.
It'll be long. He hit that ball a little bit fat, and that's why the ball did not back up, and he will be about 20 feet. So with the water and being that close, it's very difficult to put spin on the ball from that close, especially on a downhill lie as we go back to 12.
Oh, we have a minute. The 12th green has gone from being one of the worst to perhaps the best on the course. In 1981, they completely dug up the green and installed subsurface pipes. They actually control the soil temperature with underground pipes. The soil temperature this week at about 70 degrees. It traditionally has the morning shade, gets a lot of frost, but they don't have that problem anymore. Now Ballesteros to remain within 1. Well, you have to admire his conservative play here. It's paid off as he's parred 11. He's parred 12, just as he wanted. Now he can take his chances at 13 and 15 coming home. So Ken Green with his par here at 12 remains at 1 over. Mike Reid still hangs in there, tied with Scott Hoch at 5 under. Mike Reid may be the most overlooked and underrated player in the field this week. This was Reid for birdie at 11. Just enough moisture on the greens that perhaps it slowed it up. In the 1976 U.S. Open at Atlanta Athletic Club, 18-year-old Mike Reid had the first round lead with 67. Let's go forward to 13.
Your first look at the 13th hole from the tee shot. Azalea's on the right. Trees on the
White man's drive here, Joe.
there. You come around the bend. It's just to the back of the 12th green. You cross a creek. Its fairway slopes from right to left, and there's a the last pine on the right-hand side of the fairway is the target with a slight draw. Creek protects the entire left-hand side, crosses in front of the green into the right-hand side. So aim at that lone pine there, right to left. Not quite getting the run today that they have in the past because the fairways are soft, but that makes the green soft and easier to pitch to. Ballesteros now, who has not played this hole that well. He has played it 6-4-6. Drove in the trees yesterday when the rain was coming down. Right now, with where he is playing, just like Norman hit it too far right. He has to protect the going left here. A hole with his length 4 is a score he's looking at. Looks anxiously to the right side a little bit to me. And that will not have a chance to go for the green. Those trees back there, you're looking from the front tree. It's 210 yards as we go back to 11.
Ben Crenshaw from about 185 yards out. Well, that started well right. And brought it in nicely. Good play. Meanwhile, here at 12, Mike Reid. Steady. He doesn't make any mistakes, doesn't beat himself. In fact, Mike Reid, in his 3rd appearance here at Augusta, he's never made the cut until this week. Who'd have thought it so? And who'd have thought that Scott Hoch would be tied for the lead with Mike Reid. Hoch now actually probably having the easier of the 2 shots, playing away from the water. If there is such a thing as an easy second shot at 11. One of the few balls today we've seen past the flagstick. To 14.
Second shot of the elegant Englishman Nick Faldo. 405-yard dogleg to the left, par 4. Oh, beautiful golf shot right there. Nick Faldo at 2 under par, 3 shots behind our 2 leaders, Mike Reid and Scott Hoch. Beautiful golf shot. This pin today is cut in the back left, and let's go to 18.
And Jack Nicklaus from 175 yards. You look at history.
Locked it out. Jack.
Set up, blocked it out. 6 times the champion. The only man to successfully defend the championship. Unhappy at the moment. To 13.
Norman moments ago. And I told you how important it was. He needed this. Is it enough? Yes. And Norman makes birdie, goes to 2 under, and don't sell him out yet. So the leader right now, co-leaders Mike Reid and Scott Hoch at 5 under par. Ballesteros at 4. Ben Crenshaw at 4. A lot of golf left.
Neither Mike Reid nor Scott Hoch has ever won a major before. Right behind him, Ballesteros and Crenshaw, both winners here at Augusta National. Seve twice in pursuit of a third green jacket. Ben Crenshaw won here in 1984. And Tom Weiskopf, how about the birdie by Greg Norman? What does that do for him now at this point as he heads to the 14th tee?
Jim, big lift there because it didn't appear that Greg was going to make 4 on an easy hole for him today, you know, but that should give him a real shot in the arm, especially with 15 coming up. But he still has to play one shot, one hole at a time. He can't get ahead of himself, and he can't rely on the other people to make mistakes. He has to make it happen now.
Let's go out to Steve Melnick at 12.
All right, Jim. Mike Reid, who has a wonderful short game, as you might imagine, with his lack of length, he needs to have a good short game. But his game is predicated on his accuracy, and he simply doesn't make any mistakes. He's very organized. Watch out. Watch out. Mike Reid has taken the lead. Crenshaw backs away from his putt for birdie at 11 as Reid's ball finds the bottom of the cup at 12 as we go to 18.
The acclaim for the best. That says it all. Jack said earlier this week that he first came here when he was 19 years old. And now I'm 49, and I still feel the same way. Back over to 14.
Well, as Mike Reid charges into the lead, Nick Faldo with a birdie putt of about 4 feet. He'll play it outside of the hole. Hole is about where his hands are right there. Bingo, right in the middle. And he birdies 13 and 14 and steps to the par 5 15th at 3 under par, chasing Mike Reid by 3 strokes. Just got a brand new putter, and he's only made 6 birdies with that new putter. As you can see, the 14th hole, 46 birdies, 46 bogeys, pretty much a par hole. And the 14th hole plays it's a psychological bridge, I think, between 13 and 15. 2 optimistic birdie holes. This hole, you just try not to make a mistake. We've only had about 7 birdies. Nick is our 7th birdie of the day. It's wet, and so the ball is staying on this top shelf, which they rebuilt last year. Our 87 champion Larry Mize, 1 over par for the day. That is 4 par, and he remained at +3 as Mike Reid has stepped up and taken the lead, and now let's see what he can do with it coming into the par 5s. And let's go to the 13th hole in a par 5. Kenny.
Ballesteros, his 3rd shot. 70 yards. High and to the left. I don't know. That will not spin back, and that is a little longer than Greg Norman's. So you're looking at Mike Reid. Amazing Mike Reid. Went to 6 under par with that little chip in at 12. Scott Hoch at 5. 2 players, Ballesteros and Crenshaw at 4. Nick Faldo at 3 and Greg Norman at 2. And I'll tell you this, it's not over. This is amazing. It must be Sunday, and it must be the back 9 at Augusta National. There's the shortest hitter on, well, not on the tour, they say about it, but he's not in the part of Norman and Ballesteros and Crenshaw, but he won the World Series at Firestone, which is a long golf course. But if he goes for the green and 2, I'm going to check his diet. I would say he would be conservative enough to put it to the right side. Don't fool with the creek. Take his layup and go for his pitch, which is the way he's going to play it. He is 8 under on par 5s, and if he's not long, you're not supposed to do that. Beautiful sight. This 13th hole is beautiful as we go to 14.
And here's one of the longest guys on the tour chasing one of the shortest guys. Greg Norman, 145 yards out. You can see that pin is sitting just to the right of our TV camera. There's that pine tree to the left, which if a pulled shot hits it, difficult pitch shot.
Come on,
He's hollering a bite. It's going right of the flag, and it'll go down in this other bowl. There's a shelf, and then it feeds down into the first bowl. A little bit farther, it goes to another bowl. As this is getting very interesting. All the thugs trying to chase little Mike Reid. And let's go to 13.
Ballesteros taking a good look at this. Again, as I say, with his length and plays the ball from right to left, he has not played 13 very well, but we'll go to 11 quickly.
Crenshaw with his solid par here at 11. Tremendous respect for the difficulty of this hole. To 13.
Ballesteros stalking around. Ken Green leaning on his putter, who is on the green, and 2 played almost the identical shot that Nick Faldo played from the same position. He was 230, and he put a cut shot in there, and he is even closer than Nick Faldo was. But we wait 11.
Hoch with his par, so he remains just 1 back of Mike Reid. To 13.
Greg Norman, the only one to read this green correctly. Moves a little bit to the right. Downhill, not quite as fast as it has been because of the dampness. For birdie. That's not going to reach it. He'll leave himself 1.5 feet, and that's downhill. And he has had his difficulty the other day when 4-putting and missing some short putts, but he has been very brilliant on his putting today. Let's go to 18. Pat Summerall.
Jack Nicklaus. Disappointing. That was for par. And Nicklaus shoots 71. Good tournament, nevertheless. Finishes 3 over. Good effort. Back to 12.
Scott Hoch may be thought of as being in an unfamiliar position, but he was very much in the title hunt at the 87 PGA. He came to the last hole needing birdie to tie, ended up 3-putting, but he's been there before. He shows no signs of backing off now. Probably a 6-iron. He has the perfect shaped shot for this hole, left to right. Let's go to the studio and Jim Nance.
All right, Steve, a little more on our leader, Mike Reid. He's 34 years old, lives in Provo, Utah. He graduated from BYU, where he played on the golf team with Jim Nelford, John Fote, and Pat McGowan. In fact, for his first 11 years on the tour, he never was in the winners column. Had trouble finding that first victory, but finally in the fall of 1987, he won at Tucson, and he followed that up last year with a victory at the very prestigious World Series of Golf. He credits his brother Bill Reid as the greatest help to his game, and Bill is the professional at the TPC course in Scottsdale, the site of the Phoenix Open. Let's go to 12.
Well, the man who redefines the term traditionalist, Crenshaw, 6-iron.
No. Down. Get out.
Here's Carl Jackson asking for it to get down. That's way in the back of the bunker.
Killed.
That was a shot that should have gone left to right and instead actually came over it. So Crenshaw will need all his resources to make par here, but Mike Reid enjoys a 1-shot margin over Scott Hoch.
The Masters is being led at the moment by slender Mike Reid, a man at 6 under par, 1 up on Scott Hoch, 2 behind Ballesteros and Crenshaw. And Tom Weiskopf, what is Mike Reid experiencing right now as he approaches 13?
Well, he is let's go to 13 with Ken Venturi first, Jim.
Mike Reid is laying up. He's 240 yards, and he hit that fat. He's going to leave himself 90 yards or better to the hole with a hanging lie, and I would imagine if all being equal, he will not be sure of the hole. Let's go back to the studio right now.
All right, Kenny, Tom, you were talking about Mike Reid right now.
Jim, he is under enormous pressure, and he's got to make some very difficult decisions in the remaining 6 holes. And but I think it's great. I think the thing that keeps him going, is motivating him, is the fact that he is beating the world's greatest proven players at their game. I mean, he's playing right with them.
Well, it's a one-shot advantage right now for Reid, with Hoch 1 back, Ballesteros in the group at 4 under. Let's go back to Steve Melnick at 12.
Crenshaw may be faced with the most difficult shot in major championship competition, a downhill lie to a flagstick with Brays Creek beyond. If anybody can handle it, he can. How about that for a gutty play? How about that? He actually hit it into the bank, spun it, and stopped it. There aren't too many players that would have the nerve, let alone the skill, to make that play. Look at the comparison of our 4 leaders. Ballesteros, who's blistered the front 9 along with Crenshaw. They've limped in on the back 9. Reid, 5 under on the back 9 as we go forward to 13.
13. This better be a little long. Just right long. Very, very well played. Very well thought out. Leaves himself about almost the identical putt that Greg Norman had, a little bit shorter. Tom Weiskopf was saying that Mike Reid is beating him at their own game, only in the score, not in length, Tom. Let's go back to 12.
Scott Hoch hanging in there. He's not putting any undue pressure on himself. You get the sense that his golf swing's very much in control. He's not having to get it up and down. He's hitting fairways and greens. He's just a shot back, and with his length at 13 and 15, may have the advantage as he turns home. Is it enough? Well, he's got to be happy with par 11 and par 12. So 14.
Right in the middle of the fairway from 175 yards out, Seve Ballesteros probably hit a 3-wood off the tee. Pin is right below our tower right there. That large mound you see is in the fairway, and that's about 30 yards short of the green. Seve will play it very high. You have to hit the ball right on the left-hand side of this green. Let it feed down to the hole. Oh, that's perfect. Just took up on him a little bit of that ball and right down by the hole, and Seve is 4 under par. And let's go back to 15.
Nick Faldo drove the ball 250 yards, laid up, and that is his 3rd shot. Hit a little fat from 105 yards. So he's got a sizable putt for birdie, but it's the good news is up the slope as we go to the 12th.
I think Crenshaw summed up the essence of this tournament when he said the Masters is the celebration of golf. Well, what a disappointment. So Crenshaw now drops 3 back of Mike Reid. Can't be too disappointed. He hit a poor tee shot. Unfortunately, got the score he didn't want to make as we go forward to 15.
Nick Faldo conferring with his caddy Andy Prodger, who's an Englishman like himself. This putt has quite a big swing from the player's right down to his left. A little more gardening to be done. Very deliberate player is Nick Faldo. We'll go back to the 13th.
Scott Hoch on the tee now. Started out to the right. Brings it back, and he'll be able to go for the green from there, I would think, and touch and go, but he's one shot behind the leader, that's all. We go 15.
And Faldo's opportunity to tie Seve Ballesteros at 4 under par. Nope. To 13.
Mike Reid was watching Tom Kite putt and realized the ball does not move as much left, but he shoved it. Never had a chance from the start. And he put himself about 2 feet away, but on the tee, Ben Crenshaw coming off a bogey at number 12. That's going right if he's doing that.
No.
And I don't know whether he's going to have a chance to go at it from there. Mike Reid tapped in for his par as we watch Crenshaw and Scott Hoch walk off the 13th tee. For a hole that only plays 465 yards, it really doesn't give up a lot. But Mike Reid at the present time is 6 under par after 13 holes. Scott Hoch at 5. Ballesteros trails 4 under.
A surprising name atop that leaderboard. Mike Reid at -6 leads by 1 over Scott Hoch. Ballesteros 2 behind, and then Faldo and Crenshaw at -3. Greg Norman at 2. Out to 17.
Jumbo Ozaki. He's currently at +4, and this is for birdie. In the heart, and Ozaki heading for perhaps his best Masters finish. And we go to 15.
Greg Norman at the top of the hill has pounded out his drive 290 yards. He's got in his hands at the moment a 4-iron. He has 210 yards to the flagstick, and he has seen that Nick Faldo ahead of him, one of his closest rivals, Faldo just 1 stroke ahead of him, has failed to make a birdie. And so now this is an opportunity that Greg Norman really must translate into an eagle if he intends to win this championship. There you see where he is at the top of the hill in the perfect position. That looked good to me. Made a great contact. Just caught the bunker. And now he's got very little green between himself and the flagstick. Needed a great deal of finesse to get up and down for a birdie. So you might say that you're seeing the beginning of the end for him, unless he can make little touch of magic there. To 16. Now this hole today, playing at 175 yards par 3, is causing all kinds of fits to the players all week. It yielded until today only 26 birdies, and there have only been 7 more today, and there have been doubles and triple bogeys. It's the 3rd most difficult hole on the golf course in the championship, with a stroke average of 3.35. Nick Faldo, very strong in the leg, as befits a man who had a chance to be an Olympic cyclist before golf took his attention. He became the youngest ever English amateur champion, although he only took up golf in the middle of his teen years at the age of 15, having watched so much on TV. that turned him in favor of this game. Very phlegmatic individual, never gets flustered. He's looking at diminishing opportunities. That is probably a 6-iron. And, oh. Will it feed back? No, it will not. Now, I think he expected that to feed back a little towards the hole down the slope. He's got a very similar putt that Sandy Lyle made down the slope last year for a 2 that helped him to win the Masters. Over to 14.
Thank you, Ben. Tom Kite in the middle of the fairway. Tom is 165 yards out. Mike Reid is 160. I was just thinking, Mike Reid, if he won that green coat, as conservative as he is, that'd probably be the wildest coat he would have in his closet. He is a very, very conservative, funny guy, but he doesn't say much. Tom Kite now with a 6-iron. Pin is in the back left. Tom plays the ball right to left. He'll try to hook it in there. Currently +4 for the day. Not having a very fun Sunday. Might make it a little bit better. From the top of the green, you see right there in line with the flagstick, that is straight downhill to the flag. Mike's leading the Masters, and he's got a lot of adrenaline going. He's getting that ball out there 240, 245 now. He will not make any mistakes. So quiet. Sometimes he's in parentheses. He's very, very quiet. But boy, getting the lead, as Steve Melnick was saying, he will not make many mistakes. Good pin for him here. Mike hits the ball high, right to left. Got a 7-iron, 160. Heck, he might even try to hit the 15th hole in 2. Now, that was a little wayward there. That was very short. And if this wasn't wet, it might go all the way down to the other side of the green. And it's slowly making its way down. It is still rolling as Mike walks. He can't see it. It's going, and now it's really gaining some speed. Oh, this is going to be a fun putt right here. And let's go down to the studio. Jim Nance.
Well, thank you, Gary. And who better to comment than the great champion who's won here 6 times, Jack Nicklaus, who now joins us. And Jack, a good round today for you, 1 under par 71.
Well, I played decently, Jim. I had a good chance to shoot a pretty good score. I sort of figured going out this morning that I really still had a chance to win the golf tournament if I shot a low number. And I got it out a couple under, and I just couldn't make anything the back 9. Instead of shooting 30, I shot 37.
Were you thinking 65 again, like 1986?
Well, I certainly had it in my mind when I was, out in 34. Certainly, 31 in the back 9 is not an unrealistic score.
This really was the first day, though, Jack. Well, let's go to 13 first, Jack.
Scott Hoch's 3rd shot. He was 225 yards on his 2nd shot, elected to lay up, and now he's hit a very poor pitch. Quite a few players from that same length of 225 yards have gone for the green. He's only 1 shot back, but that's his choice. It could be about the lie, could be where he felt, but he has not left himself a very good chance for birdie. Ben Crenshaw now from just about 70 yards. A little bit left of the flag, and he'll be about 12, 14 feet. They just don't want to flirt with the creek, and they're very conservative there as we go to 15.
Great touch by Greg Norman. That is a slippery slope down that green, and he did very well to get it as close as he did. He now has this putt for an absolutely must birdie if he is to have any realistic chance. This to get to 3 under par. 3 behind Mike Reid, who has troubles of his own at the 14th. There is not as much break as some of the players have read to the right. No mistake. Greg Norman moves up to 3 under par. And now only 3 players in front of him. One of them, Seve Ballesteros, just 1 ahead of him. Mike Reid and Scott Hoch, the 2 quiet men. And now from 230 yards with a 3-iron in his hands. You'll remember how Seve self-destructed with a 4-iron here when the great Jack Nicklaus in the studio won last in 1986. We'll go to the 14th hole.
Ben Wright, I think he could probably get some frequent flyer mileage with this putt. This has got to be 60, 70 feet up 2 ridges. Look at this putt. You do not know how good that putt is right there. Unbelievable. He's got about a 3-footer, pretty straight putt. Mike has no shortcomings really in his game other than his yardage. Everything he does well, short putts, long putts. Great, great fairway wood player, which could come into play on the 15th. And we'll just see how he reacts coming down on the final Sunday here at Masters Week. And let's go to 15.
Now Seve ready to go. And he has really hooked that comprehensively. Well, as I say, he self-destructed here 2 years ago, and that's an attempt to do the same. And as we go forward to the 16th, Nick Faldo has that putt down the slope. Has a chance. It's there. Nick Faldo is back in the picture. That is a magnificent birdie by Nick Faldo. Takes him to 4 under par. Very reminiscent of the Lyle putt to 13.
Scott Hoch now from good 25, 30 feet down the hill, moves more to the right than they believe. Everybody has misread that. I don't believe I've seen one putt from that position on the high side. So he was 225 to the green, elected to lay up, hit a poor pitch. Probably wind up 2-putting for his par, and he'll leave here at 5 under par. So, and Crenshaw now, who has left himself, I would say, about 12 feet. And Crenshaw, as I might say, as Norman was here, as a few have passed here, he needs birdie here to get after Mike Reid, because there's birdie, I guess, 15, right and left. And Faldo made his move at 16, and we'll go forward to 14.
And on 14, we have our leader, Mike Reid, to tidy up his 2-putt from about 65, 70 feet. This should be inside left and firm. Well, he hit it inside left and firm. Spun out, and now, first chink in the armor on the 14th hole. Mike Reid drops back to 5 under par in a tie with Scott Hoch. And let's go back to 13.
That putt right there of Mike Reid's has led a lot of people back in the picture. Jack Nicklaus, the green's a little slower because of the dampness?
The greens are a little slower, Kenny. They're still breaking a lot. Of course, these greens break probably more than any other greens that we play because of the severeness of the slope. But they're a little slower today, and you can take a little bit of a run at them. And that putt there obviously breaks a lot. And the one that Mike Reid just missed, he was playing a break that wasn't there.
So Crenshaw leads with par, and we'll go forward to 16.
175 yards to the flagstick. Greg Norman, 6 or 7 iron.
Go, get up, get up, get it!
Oh, that'll soar way back down into the bottom. The only good thing about that is that he's putting uphill. And over on the 15th hole, after that very poor, by his standards, 3-iron shot, Seve confers with his phlegmatic caddy, Ian Wright, from Redcar, Yorkshire, not like Vicente, his brother, to 13.
That's par. Scott Hoch leads with par. Now he's tied with Mike Reid at 5 under. 2 players, 1 behind, and 2 players, 2 behind. And we'll go forward to 15.
I was talking about the relationship between himself and his caddy. Ian Wright caddied for him for Seve when he won the British Open last year. And there's, you see the situation as it stands currently with the 2 quiet men tied for the lead, but Mike Reid, having showed a first chink in his armor at the 14th with those 3 putts. Seve knows only too well that if he has a realistic chance, he must get up and down here. Tom Weiskopf, he's coming right up the slope, which is going to be quite slow as the rain is hammering down now.
Ben, it's not an overly difficult shot for Seve. He'll play a chicken run, keep it low, run it up the bank, and try to leave it underneath the hole, just to the right of the pin for an approach putt.
There's quite a swing from left to right here as the ball dies, and obviously he has to back off as there is a big ovation for one of his deadliest rival, Greg Norman. As Greg Norman strides out to the 16th. Now, looked like a little 5-iron shot. Will it get there? It will not. It will leave him a long putt across the slope of 11 or 12 feet. Jack Nicklaus, as the rain hammers down, it's taken a lot of the break out of the putts on this green.
Well, that's the same putt that I had earlier, Ben, and that ball broke about 2 feet from a slightly longer angle, so his putt's going to break at least foot and a half there. It's going to break very quickly. I don't care how much the greens have slowed down.
And now we're over at the 16th hole. This gorgeous but sometimes killing par 3 as we look at the leaderboard again. Mike Reid and Scott Hoch tied at 5 under par. Reid coming to the 15th hole, and I doubt whether he'll be going for that green in 2. Greg Norman. We'll have a look at this from every angle. Jack Nicklaus, you've been playing with Greg quite a lot, and I think helping him. He seems to have taken a lot of your mannerisms.
Well, Ben, I don't know. I heard that on television the other day, and I really haven't talked to Greg about it, nor have we discussed it. We've played a lot of golf together, but I think Greg has his own mannerisms and his own style, and I have known he is taking more time lately than he usually does. I've been watching that, and I think that Greg's style is a little faster than that, and I don't know whether that's hurt him or helped him, but he seems to be playing pretty well right now.
And now he's debating whether he's going to putt. He's been watching to see what Seve's doing, and he's decided that he will get his putt in, his first putt in, before Seve putts on the adjoining 15th hole. There's a chance. It's there! Greg Norman. Greg Norman ties Nick Faldo at 4 under par, and as he did so, Seve Ballesteros missed at 15 and nearly died of fright at the tremendous noise. And here you'll see it. Not as much break as the players have read, and there you saw he hit it through the break. And that roar plainly disturbed him. No question about that. He flinched. Green has this for a par, and now that for a bogey, which will take him to 1 over par. I'm surprised that Seve elected to putt when Greg Norman was having his go at a birdie. The nose of that putter up in the air again. But that is another crucial blunder for Seve Ballesteros at a 15th hole that has been his nemesis in 2 of the last 3 Masters. Now back in the fairway, Mike Reid has 265 yards, but let's look at Greg Norman's magnificent birdie putt that so unnerved his Spanish rival. Up the slope, just a little left turn at the finish. And there, he's created his opportunity to get a green coat at last. To 14, and Gary McCord.
And also trying to get a green coat, Scott Hoch, our co-leader, from 185 yards away. Just about pin high on the fringe. It's a very fast chip shot down the hill, but it's getting quite wet out here right now, and I think that's really going to help Scott on this chip shot. And now back in the fairway, Ben Crenshaw. Jack Nicklaus, with this pin being on a new plateau, what are the players thinking about on their second shot here?
Well, I'm not too sure. I haven't figured it out yet. I think it's, you know, you really have to have the ball underneath the hole to have much of a shot. I think Scott's got an awfully difficult little shot coming down there, but they have created a little ridge and sort of a little backing for the hole, but it's, he's got a tough shot. You really got to keep it under the hole, but if you keep it under the hole, the ball just slips down the green.
Yep, it'll go right to the right. And now Ben Crenshaw shooting right at our tower. 165 yards away, probably a full nuked 7-iron, and that's not going to get there. And you can see just what Jack was talking about a second ago. That will feed down into the bowl down there. And now let's go to 16.
And Seve Ballesteros. Oh dear me, that's the end of Seve, I fear. That is in the water without any shadow of a doubt. And I think you can say that Seve's bid for his 3rd green coat has foundered 2 fathoms deep. Over at the 15th hole, Mike Reid has his own problems. He laid back 120 yards from the hole, and that is in the water also. I would say that the pendulum has swung very suddenly in Greg Norman's favor. Mike Reid will be playing his 4th shot. And there you see the situation. Mike Reid will be playing his 4th shot from up the hill, and Scott Hoch is all right.
Well, it doesn't get any better every year in golf than the back 9 at the Masters on Sunday. And we're seeing it happen once again. And I must confess, a great moment happened before Greg Norman hit his putt at 16. Jack Nicklaus, visiting with us here in the Butler cabin, pointed to you, Tom Weiskopf, and said, "You and me," referring to 1975 when you were on the 15th green. Jack, you were about to hit your putt at 16, the now famous 40-footer up the hill that beat Tom Weiskopf.
Well, it was exactly the same situation. I mean, Greg had an opportunity, if he made his putt, to put Seve in an awkward position. Tom had a short putt and made his, and Johnny Miller was on the green that missed his. And then Tom played a bad shot just like Seve did the next hole and 3-putted. And, you know, then that's when I went on and won the golf tournament. But it was absolutely identical type situation.
Well, it was a brilliant call on your part. And let's go to 16, Ben Wright.
Well, that's a brilliant shot by Seve, too. His 3rd, alas, from the front of the tee, the drop area, and we'll go forward to the 17th.
This is Nick Faldo's bid for a share of the lead. He's never finished higher than 15th here, and this is his 6th trip, and back to 14.
Well, golf fans, if you don't like this, you don't like golf. This is getting unbelievable. As now, a leader, Scott Hoch, tied with Nick Faldo, depending on what Mike Reid does on 16. He went through 3 different clubs there. Went through a putter, sand wedge, and back to a putter, and let's go forward to 15.
And Mike Reid has played his 4th shot. And we will look at that in a moment. Here it is. He came forward just a couple of yards, but it's roughly the same shot. And as so often happens, just hit it that much harder to atone for the shot into the water. And Mike Reid has this putt down and across the slope for a par. It's a tall order. This does have a big swing from left to right. So with Mike Reid facing a very tough par putt, we have Nick Faldo in the driver's seat. At the moment, a 3-way tie at 5 under par. Mike Reid trying to stay in that tie. And over to the 17th.
Greg Norman 1 shot out, 145 yards. Second, and 5th in the last 3 years. He has never won here. But he might this year. Opened with what for him are typical rounds in the first 2 rounds, 74-75, 68 yesterday, and we go to 14.
As the rain continues down, Scott Hoch knocks that in for a 5, and here comes the shark. It's got the right weather conditions, and let's go to 15.
This is for a bogey for Mike Reid, and it's a big swing left to right, and that was what you might call a tentative prod, so he will make double bogey and fall back to 3 under, and Seve misses for his bogey at the 16th, and double bogey will drop him down to 2 under, and we go to the 17th where Greg Norman approaches the green.
Tremendous ovation for Greg Norman. He's only 3 feet away from birdie and a share of the lead. As we said, he opened with rounds of 74-75, and then yesterday was through 17 when he had to wait that hour and 40-minute rain delay. Jack, I'm sure you must have some empathy for what he's gone through the last 3 years here.
He's played awfully well, and you know, he's had a chance to win, and I think that when he lost here a couple of years ago, it really hurt him for about a year, and he's back on his game now, and he's playing very well.
To the 15th.
And that is a very good drive by Scott Hoch at the 15th, leaving him in a go position should he desire to try and carry the water. He has had a wonderful hole, has Scott Hoch, here at the 15th. Eagle on the first day and birdies thereafter. Ben Crenshaw, just that one birdie. And he's at 3 under par. The heavens are really weeping now. Very, very heavy rain. It's hammering down. That's coming off the big mound, and therefore I doubt whether Crenshaw has any chance of going for the green. Over to the 18th.
Nick Faldo from 170 yards back down that fairway, uphill. Playing with Larry Mize. Looks like Mize will be first. And you can get a pretty good indication now of how hard that rain is hammering down. 4-iron for Mize.
He's just looking at getting over the top of the bunker, Pat.
Oh my God. 4 left.
4 left. Hold your umbrellas over your head. Right into the gallery.
Well, maybe it's a good thing it was raining.
Boy.
Someone might have taken it in the head. Back to Greg Norman. Vern Lundquist.
And Norman with about 3 feet in this driving rainstorm. If it's good, he's tied at the top. One to play in regulation. And Faldo and Norman have joined Scott Hoch at 5 under par. Mike Reid drops back to -3, where he shares that spot with Ben Crenshaw. And we go to 18.
And Nick Faldo, who shares the lead at -5. 4-iron for him too.
Wait a minute. Watch it. Come on. Here we go again.
Does that look familiar?
It sure did. Shades of Sandy Lyle. The hole was more in the center of the green when Sandy Lyle played, Pat. But he has got an excellent opportunity to make birdie.
Back on the tee, you heard the roar. The word just went up.
The giant scoreboard.
What Greg Norman did back at 17.
Pat, I can't remember a tournament at the Masters where the scores had fluctuated and gone up and down, and so many people came back in the run of it. It is a tournament that went from looked like 2 players that are out, and now look at the players you got, the premier players in the world.
Faldo, Norman, Scott Hoch. I can't help but believe you can see what happened at the 18 this week. Very difficult hole, scoring average of 4.279, but I can't remember the weather being like this for 4 days.
Plus the first 2 days they have not seen the wind like that.
Right.
It has been a very, very different Masters weather-wise.
Greg Norman has an iron on the right side of the tee box.
And to that front of that bunker that on the left-hand side is 255 yards. He's protecting from going in the bunker.
Coming off 3 straight birdies.
That's what he protected against, but he's left himself a pretty long shot, Pat.
Behind the bunker. But there's another bunker up by the green that he's got to come over in an effort to get close to the hole. Faldo in the meantime has an excellent birdie putt opportunity up at the green. Over to 15.
Scott Hoch has pumped out a terrific drive of 280 yards, leaving him 220 to the flagstick. But the rain is very, very heavy. The air is cold. There you see that how he has played this hole so brilliantly. There have been only 6 eagles all week, and that is a 3-iron that he's going with. He's let it go to the right. And I think the bunker, yes, there it is in the base of the bunker to the right-hand side. So he has a similar shot that confronted Greg Norman, and Greg Norman dealt with the situation so admirably that he's just made 4 birdies in 5 holes. And now to the 16th, 175 yards. Mike Reid, after that tragic double bogey, and he's left himself very, very short indeed. Having dropped to 3 under par, he's got 45 feet up the green. Here it is, with a swing to the left at the finish. It will come almost sideways at the finish. And he is not going to make one of the very few birdies that have been recorded here, just 9 of them today. The most significant, obviously, those of Faldo and Norman. Tom Kite in the bunker at 3 over par. So it's another good performance by Kite as we go forward to the 18th hole.
And Nick Faldo with a chance to take the outright lead to go 6 under.
Just coming off birdies at 16 and 17. Started the day amazingly at 2 over par, Pat. And can you imagine that this would be a round of 64 on a day like this? It really is. Started out birdied the first 2 holes, and he birdied 4, 7. Then he lost the bogey at 11. That's the only mistake he made. But then came back with birdies at 13, 14, 16, 17, and this you're looking at a putt for 64 to go 6 under for the tournament. You've watched this all day, Pat. Does this putt break? It doesn't break as much as they think. We've seen this over the years that most of the time players have missed it. If they're firm, go right over the top side of the hole.
Those who have missed on, as he looks at it, to the right side.
The high side, right.
If there should be a playoff, it would begin at 10, but I'm not sure about the daylight remaining.
That is about 15 feet. That's got a chance. That's got a chance. Just a little easy. If that was just firmer, it was dead middle.
65 for Faldo. Finishes 5 under. And now he'll wait. Greg Norman has about 185 yards. He's short of the 2 fairway bunkers.
This hole has really changed, Pat, in the last few days. You look at players of Faldo and Mize hitting 4 irons, and Greg Norman from 185 yards. They were hitting 7, 8s, and 9 irons in here the first couple of days with the wind direction.
Right. Let's go over to 15.
Scott Hoch now. That's a good looking shot. That's an absolutely brilliant stroke, leaving himself below the hole for his birdie putt, and you can't really fault Scott Hoch's play. He's just been brilliant all the way through. Birdied the 2nd, 5th, and 9th holes, and all the rest rock solid pars. And we'll go forward to the 18th.
And Greg Norman. The elements certainly a factor. Greg 185 yards again. He's birdied 3 holes in a row.
What do you think he's got? 5 iron, Pat, maybe? 4 iron?
I'd guess 4.
I would think so. Up that hill. The main thing is that to the hole he could probably get a 5-iron, but if he hits a little bit thick, it's going to get the bunker. He's got to get it past the hole and do almost the same thing that Faldo did. He's got to get it over the front of the bunker and let the slope take care of the shot.
His second shot coming up.
4-iron. He's staring at it. No,
in front and back down the hill.
We were informed it was a 5-iron now. That is not the club. Of course, that's easy to say. He had to get it up on the top shelf.
Back to 15.
Well, despite everything, you can't count this man out. His was his third shot. He gave himself no chance to go with the green. He had 270 yards, but that's a very fine pitch. And you can't count out this man. So magical is his ability with the blade as he putts for a birdie, this to get him to within 1 of the lead. Well, the time is running out, but that man's ability with the putter is such that we will have to wait till the last putt is holed to count him out. But Scott Hoch has a great birdie opportunity coming up the slope. Just a little break to his left to take the outright lead. His faithful caddy keeping him as dry as he possibly can, and as you see the rain pelting down, and we'll go forward to the 18th.
And listen to the tribute to Greg Norman.
It is very difficult to applaud with an umbrella in your hand.
It's not as enthusiastic.
No, it's a lot more silent. It's a very few times that you'll hear some yelling because in frustration that they can't applaud. The most frustration is Greg Norman with that shot, not giving him a shot at birdie.
Back to 15.
And here's a man who has a chance to take the lead outright, who has never finished higher than 27th in 5 previous Masters. Yes! That looked like he was playing in a $2 Nassau, almost casual. So we have an outright leader in Scott Hoch. And Augusta National is weaving its own brand of magical tapestry that we have come to expect. Back to the 18th.
Greg Norman. His third shot just came up a little bit short and trickled back down the hill.
From a shot trying to get 6 under and win, and now he has a shot to try to get up and down for tie and wait. Sand wedge. Get it over the front of the fringe and let the ball run a little bit. Just carry the fringe is all you need. Caught the fringe, hit it right into the fringe.
You need a rain wedge.
That hit right into the first cut and just knocked the ball dead. Disappointed. He's got to be disappointed. Pat taking the iron off the tee, he took the bunkers out of play, but then he took away his hole card, which is his length, and and he can drive it. He's a good left to right player besides, and the closer you can get into this hole, the better off you are, because the 3 things that are against you here. The pin is up in front. Mark O'Meara's shot. The pin is up in front. He's uphill and he's got a long iron.
He left himself 185 yards uphill, as you pointed out. Very difficult shot. Now,
I think he missed club. That's all there is to it. There's no doubt, because he didn't have the look of someone who had missed the shot. He kept looking with anxiety, looking at the shot, and couldn't believe that it was that short.
Back to 16.
Scott Hoch. I think that's a 6-iron. He's looking anxiously right. Well, he's played it very sensibly into the fat of the green. He's taken the bunker on the left out of play, and of course the dreaded water. So that's not a bad shot at all. He can just two-putt here and go merrily on his way. He has looked at the big scoreboard and knows that he has a one-stroke advantage. And I think Tom Weiskopf, that was a very sensible play.
Not a bad play, Ben. He still has a birdie opportunity. He just has to be careful right now not to three-putt. Conditions are getting more difficult. I would ask Jack this. If you could put yourself inside of his head and coach him now, what would you tell him to do on these last 3 holes, Jack?
Scott Hoch, well, I think that he played a sensible shot at 16. I think I would have told him to make sure he had enough club to take the water and the bunker out of play, which he didn't do. 17 is obviously make sure you get it up in the air off the tee. The last thing you want to do is get into Ike's tree. Making sure that you play conservatively to the left of the hole, give yourself a shot. 18, I think what Norman did is a sensible thing by playing the 1-iron. Whatever club you do, you take the bunker out of play and then play long on your second shot and not short.
Ben Crenshaw. Oh yes, what a brave, utterly courageous shot. Not to speak of skill. Leaves himself right below the hole, over the 18th.
Greg Norman for par. Don't forget now, Nick Faldo has finished at 5 under. Greg Norman needs to make this to finish 5 under.
As important as his putt was at 13 to get himself in the position to try to win or tie, this one here, it's either in and hope for a playoff or no chance at all. He has got to be just the most discouraged person right now that you could. 18th hole has really hurt him.
Not just this year. He shot 68, 67 the last 2 days in very adverse weather conditions. But the hole has not been kind to him.
No, it hasn't.
So Scott Hoch has the lead by 1 over Nick Faldo, who has finished playing. Hoch back at 16 at the moment.
Scott Hoch is the leader by 1 over Nick Faldo. Hoch is on the green at 16. He's a graduate of Wake Forest, where he played on a national championship team there with Curtis Strange and Jay Haas. He's won 3 times on the tour, but the last being the Quad Cities Open all the way back in 1984. So it's been 5 years, a dry spell for Hoch. And right now, he has a shot at dropping that string and picking up a green jacket. And Jack Nicklaus, before we let you go, what do you think Hoch will do here finishing up? You talked about the strategy, what he should do. How do you think he'll hold up?
Well, I don't know. I think Scott Hoch is a very positive little player. He sort of, he doesn't waste a lot of time to get nervous. And I've seen him play an awful lot of good shots under pressure. Who knows what he's going to do? He knows what he has to do. I mean, everybody is basically finished, and if he makes 3 pars, the tournament should be his.
Jack, we appreciate you coming down and visiting with us today. And we go back out to Ben right now at 16.
And Scott Hoch has walked all the way to this green, and as he did so, the score of Greg Norman was put up on the board in the background, in other words, between the 6th tee and the 6th green, so he knows exactly what the up-to-date situation is. There it is, and he's had a pretty good look at that. Now he knows But this is a very tricky putt. Comes to his left. That is a testing second putt. He's left himself for par. Ben Crenshaw with that wonderful tee shot. He just will not give up. But he and his caddy of 15 Masters tournaments, Carl Jackson, know that he has to make this one to get to 4 under and then hopefully make 2 more coming to the clubhouse. He's left himself in the perfect position below the hole. There you see how difficult this par 3 has been, with those others including an enormous amount of double and triple bogeys. Momentary distraction, I think. It was a roar from elsewhere, 18, that just caused him to back off and abandon the visor. Yes, indeed. Ben Crenshaw gives himself a chance to get back into the championship, and of course he's playing right alongside the leader to 18.
And Ben, this is the reason for the roar.
Watch this. Watch this. Now you go in. But he cheered up after that, and watch the nice wave he gives to the gallery. But for some bad mistakes at 15 and 16 today and 15 the other day, that might have been your champion.
Well, let's go back to 16.
And Scott Hoch. He is lucky in a sense in that the rain has once again slightly lessened, lightened certainly, putting straight up the slope. Boy, he's holding out with great fortitude and almost casual. And he has a 1-stroke advantage with 2 holes to play over Nick Faldo, who's finished, and Ben Crenshaw, the most likely challenger.
Scott Hoch leads the Masters. 2 pars and he'll have a green jacket. A 1-shot lead over Nick Faldo, who's 65, puts him in the clubhouse at 5 under par. And let's go out to the action at 17. Vern Lundquist with the call.
Ben Crenshaw, Scott Hoch, the final twosome of the day. Ben Crenshaw at 4 under par. He finished the 3rd round at 3 under. And when play was suspended late yesterday afternoon, he had a 4-shot lead. While we wait, we go to 18.
Mike Reid with a 4-iron from 180 yards away. Into the umbrellas.
When it started going downhill, Pat, it just, you put the brakes on, but you're just skidding.
Back to 17.
Crenshaw off the tee. He has parred this hole each of the last 3 days. And he caught that Eisenhower tree, so named because the late president, when he played here as a member, kept insisting that it be cut out. And Cliff Roberts kept telling him no. And you can see at the left-hand side of the screen, that's 190 yards off the tee and has grown to such an extent that it fully covers half the fairway now. And as Jack Nicklaus said a while ago, Scott Hoch knows what he has to do, and that's get the ball airborne over the tree and take it out of play. which he's done. It hit the tree on the right-hand side. So he didn't catch the Eisenhower tree. He hit one on the right-hand side. And we'll see what kind of difficulty he might have. Kenny, that's somewhat unusual.
Well, he's a left to right player, and he was guarding against going in the Eisenhower tree. But the thing, if you're going to go left to right, you take it over the tree, you've got a lot of fairway to play with. So you can take it over. You've got about 60 yards of fairway to play with there. So he just let it go to the right. And the one thing he has to do is give himself the air on the left-hand side, which he's probably, I heard now, Vern, he's 190 yards from the hole. And you saw that shot the other day when we spoke about it, is that you got the bunker in front, and long you're going to run down that hill, which that's a sure 5.
So both Crenshaw and Hoch with difficulties off the tee here at 17. And Ben, of course, only one back. And we go to 18.
Mike Reid, who hit the left side of that down slope and went into the umbrellas, back up into the gallery. Kenny has a very difficult task in front of him to get the ball close.
If Mike Reid had gone on to win, Pat, it would have been probably the most Cinderella story in the history of golf.
Well, you know, you always hear, Ken, that in order to win at Augusta, you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. You have to be able to bring it right to left, and you have to hook it.
You have to putt.
And you have to putt. He can do that. Back to 17.
And the problems for both Ben Crenshaw and Scott Hoch. Take a look now at Scott Hoch's drive. Graphically displayed, it went to the right-hand side, and he has 185 yards to the hole. Scott Hoch, 34 years of age. One of his 3 victories was in 1982 at New Orleans, and it was accomplished in weather very similar to what we've experienced here. That ultimately became a rain-delayed tournament, 54 holes, when he won. And asking for the crowd to clear out.
Move back, please.
Tom Weiskopf, how about this problem?
Well, it all starts with visibility, Vern. He can't see anything from where he's going to play from. So now he has to go up on top of the hill and pick some kind of a target behind the green that will orientate this shot direction.
Tommy?
Secondly, yes.
Wouldn't you think on this shot right here with the pin on the right-hand side with the bunker, he's got a 1-shot lead, he goes down the hill, he's looking at 5. Wouldn't you think that he would take the bunker and the right side out of play and put it somewhere left side on the green as much as he can, or deep, so he takes out that going down the hill?
Definitely, Ken. You've got to play into the left center of the green. The bunker is a difficult place to recover from. The pin is an exceptionally difficult pin placement to play to, even when you're in the center of the fairway. The tough thing, again, not to be redundant, is the visibility is picking something behind the green and then playing to that area that you can't see. These are very difficult shots, especially under this pressure.
I think, Tommy, is what we're talking about is like anything else, is that if you get aggressive and you're trying to make birdies, you got a different thought. What you're doing here, he's thinking about, boy, if I make 2 pars, I win. And sometimes you never think that all week long. You don't think that way, and he's changed his attitude a little bit.
Ben Crenshaw, in the meantime, on the opposite side of the fairway. And he's hauled out the wood. Ben 2 back of Hoch. 2 years ago, stood in the middle of the fairway here.
Give me a little room, just a little bit.
And put it over the green. Chipped poorly. Bogeyed the hole, missed the playoff with Larry Mize and Greg Norman. Second shot. Terrific shot. Crenshaw some 30 feet away. Hole high, center of the green. And 2 back of Scott Hoch. These rain problems not only present for the golfers, also for our cameraman with the blind shot. Difficult to pick it up sometimes. Scott Hoch, 185 yards. Leads by 1 over Nick Faldo, who watches and waits impatiently, having completed his round with a round of 65.
Even Vern, if he puts it in the bunker, is one thing. The one place he cannot miss the green is to the right.
That's it, that's it.
That's not the place to go.
He's way long. He's a good 40 yards over the green. And we go to 18.
Mike Reid just a moment ago for his par.
Sad finish. We went through. Patty went to 6 under par at 13, and he will now finish at 2 under par. So he lost 4 shots in the last 5 holes.
Now Tom Kite back to 17.
Some of these folks are able to applaud with an umbrella in their hand, Kenny. That's for Ben Crenshaw as he walks up on the green.
I think what they do is they get together and 2 people have umbrellas and they each use 1 hand.
And a long, yes, Ken.
You're looking at this. You're looking at Crenshaw. He played a magnificent second shot with a wood there to put it on the green and get it there. Scott Hoch is just staring 5 in the eye. And I'll tell you what, you will make more 6s from there than you'll make 4s.
Yeah, I think double bogey is got to be.
That is in the pages, because you're coming up the hill. Now, if he gets up over the hill again, the ball is going to run and go past about a good 30 feet or so. So he's going to let Crenshaw get in here if he gets a chance, because if he makes his putt, he goes to 5. And you've got Scott Hoch, who will make bogey and go to 5. So Faldo right now is he looks like he's going to be the worst is in a playoff.
Kenny, Tom, how will he play this shot?
Well, first of all, I think it depends on his lie. That's going to determine what type of shot he plays. If he has a good lie, he might choose to loft it up in the air. Maybe the percentage shot would be to bounce it into the bank, but that becomes very difficult, that choice, because the ground's so soft and the bounces become a lot more unpredictable.
The only thing with using the sand wedge, Vern, I would think, is that you can hit it a little bit thick and leave it in the hill and come back. The one thing you eliminate with bump and running is you will get it on the green. You may not get it close, but you'll take the number 6 out. You take the wedge in there, you're putting 6 into it.
There's one up there.
I would think he would take himself probably a 8-iron, bump it about halfway up the hill. But again, Tom, isn't it true is that it's wet, it's uphill, you've got some grain in your face, and you're at the mercy of the first bounce of the ball.
Ken, I think probably maybe the percentage shot is to at least pitch the ball into the bank.
Right.
Maybe high up close to the green, that type of a shot, and just get it on the green, as you say.
A closed face pitching wedge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get some loft, get it into that bank at least 8 or 10 feet short, and just see what happens.
He's got to go halfway between that rope and up the hill and make sure the first bounce goes forward.
That he did.
Oh,
what
no.
a great shot. What an absolutely sensational shot.
Vern, I've been here for a long time, and I've never seen any shot from that position to equal that shot. That was brilliant. He did exactly what Tom was saying. He hit it right in that bank, and the first bounce just took off perfectly, and that ball had a lot of spin on it, Tom. Have you seen one that good, Vern, in all the years you've been there, 17?
No, sir. Not even close. So he has given himself a marvelous chance to save par. And, of course, Ben Crenshaw needs to birdie this. Take a look at this again, Ken.
Puts his hands ahead. Watch this. And it just, he catches the ball first. Pops it right in the first bank. Up it goes. And look at the spin on that ball. That ball had a chance to go in, Vern.
Thought for a moment it would.
That would have been a real miracle.
Now Ben Crenshaw. 2 back, 2 holes to play. And this is for birdie. Could it be?
What were we talking about, Vern? What were we saying? What were we talking about? I tell you what, there you're looking at the world's best putter right there.
There's another example of it. I chatted with his wife, Julie, today when they came back to start the round. I said, how's Ben? She said, he's fine. I'm a nervous wreck. I wonder how her nerves are now. Watch it again. Did it again.
That is as pure as you're going to find. You don't think you get up for this, do you?
Now Scott Hoch, who has the lead momentarily. He's got a 1-stroke lead, and he's putting for par. And it's anything but a gimme.
I've been watching him putt the last back 9, Vern, and he really does not take a whole lot of time once he gets over the ball. He takes a good look at it, but he doesn't stand there a long time. He'll take about 2-3 looks, and he'll pull that trigger.
That reaction you hear is from the 18th gallery, the gallery around the 18th green, as they posted Ben Crenshaw's score on the scoreboard there. And it was heard here at 17. That is what Scott Hoch needs for the lead to maintain it. No. There are 3 at the top. Faldo, Hoch, and Crenshaw. And Nick Faldo's in the clubhouse with a round of 65. Hoch bogeys 17. Crenshaw birdies it. Norman would be there, save for a bogey on 18. And again, the reaction from the gallery at 18 as they post Scott Hoch's score. And we go to 18.
I can't figure out who they're rooting for, Vern.
We keep saying, Ken, they can't top it, and they do it every year. Let's go to 18.
And Ben Crenshaw and Scott Hoch are on the tee at 18. Nick Faldo is already finished at -5. Crenshaw just birdied 17 to go -5, and Hoch just bogeyed 17. So there are 3 atop that leaderboard. Should there be a playoff, they would start at 10.
I will be going over to 10 if there is a playoff. Scott Hoch can take number 17 after that fine pitch shot up the hill, Pat, and the putt that he had, that was the shot right there that if he makes that, I think he just waltzes it in and makes his 4 and goes home.
And you think back about how close that shot that he hit from off the green came to going in the hole.
Both of them lipped the edge, the same edge. Crenshaw on the 18th tee with a driver.
I'd like to bring it left or right.
You have to, because the bunker is in play if he goes left.
Well, the reaction's good.
And so's the result.
In the meantime, up at the green, with the rain continuing to hammer down, they're bringing out the squeegees to keep it as dry as they possibly can.
Crenshaw will be 170 yards from the hole. Perfect angle. They've taken out the squeegees to do what they can, and there's water getting in the bunkers.
That's all right.
Scott Hoch, left to right player, good tee shot for him, and he has put it in perfect position. They're right next to each other, and I think Scott Hoch will be first to play, and he will be 171 yards.
So a three-way tie for the lead. Faldo, who's finished, and the last two of the day, Hoch and Crenshaw, walking up to their tee shots at 18.
Well, at the moment, it's come down to 18 with Faldo, Hoch, and Crenshaw tied for the lead at 5 under par. And what a charge by Ben Crenshaw with birdies at 16 and 17. And Tom Weiskopf, you're feeling right now on what's going to happen?
Well, I feel that one of these two players is going to birdie this hole because they're so close together off the tee that they're going to learn from whoever hits first. And I just feel this is a situation that is birdie's going to happen.
Let's go back out to 18 with Pat Summerall and Ken Venturi.
Well, you know, Tom, just before you said that you felt that one of them would birdie 18, Ken Venturi said the same thing.
And if Ben Crenshaw wins, he can buy a new umbrella. Tom, I agree with you. I think that right here in the situation with the pin to where it is, and they drove on the right-hand side of the fairway, they can use the slope. They can bring it in from right to left, and they're looking at casual water on 18.
And Ben, I think, is going to get a drop. Water in the bunker in front of the 18th green. Casual water ruling.
That you walk around, you can see the splash. You can bring up the water with your feet. You have to see the casual water. You can't go around stomping on it, but you have to just be able to see it. So he's showing where he can drop the ball.
Right. It's been raining steadily for about 2.5 hours now. And again, in spite of the adverse weather conditions, a tremendous, courteous gallery around the 18th now as the last two come up.
Pat, if we have a playoff, how much light do we have?
Not much. They would go back to 10 if they have a playoff. Nick Faldo, Scott Hoch, and Ben Crenshaw are tied at -5. If it's not completed today, we'll come back tomorrow live at 10 a.m. Crenshaw's away.
Well, let's see if Weiskopf and I know what we're talking about, Pat.
You mean that you think you and Tom both think that one of these two will birdie the hole to win?
I do. I'm not going to tell you who either, because I know. Right now, what you're looking at, Ben Crenshaw is a right to left player.
I think it's first time.
And Scott Hoch is a left to right player. And Crenshaw has the edge here because of the position of the pin and the slope and the angle he has. This is set up to his shot. Scott Hoch does not have quite as much green to play with as Ben Crenshaw has. There's your angle there. You see the players on the right-hand side of the fairway. They'll try to hit it into the middle of the green with a slight draw, and then if they get past, to bring it back to the hole. Again, you don't want to put it in the bunker. You don't want to leave it short like Norman did. You have to get the ball over the front of the green, and then you've got about 20 more feet to play with because it comes back.
And again, this is a situation. Nick Faldo is finished 5 under, shot 65 today. Scott Hoch at -5. Crenshaw's away. He'll be first to hit. And he's ready.
No. Oh, no, no, not there. Not there. Right over the top.
Into the bunker. And a lot of water in that bunker as well.
Well, and now there is one.
Here's Hoch.
You got to forget the putt at 17, and this is the shot at hand right now. 5 iron. That really looks good. It's going to be the right side. Hold up. He'll have a shot at it. Put himself about 20 feet away. But Pat, you have 2 thoughts on this thing. You got 2 putts you play again, 1 putt you win, but you can't afford to get too bold with this putt. That's what I was saying. At the putt at 17, he makes that, the game is over.
Crenshaw in the bunker and short, and Scott Hoch up on the green, and Nick Faldo has finished at 5 under par.
The ball is not buried.
That's Crenshaw's ball.
You know, what we were saying is that with Crenshaw being a right to left player, came over the top, and Scott Hoch wouldn't even fool with the left hand side because he's a left to right player and gave it all the air he could.
So the story basically is that Crenshaw has to get it up and down out of the bunker, and Hoch, if he makes the putt, is the champion. Not out of the realm of possibility that Crenshaw could hold it out of there.
Doug Ford held it out of there one year to win, Pat.
Back in 1956.
No, I remember 56 very well. It wasn't 56. I remember that very well. I was an amateur in 56, and I didn't hold out anything. That's when Burke won in 56. I was second as an amateur. And I think it was Ford was in 57.
57, yes.
Amazing how you remember those things. So Crenshaw now, who is a good bunker player. Here's another thing, being with the bunker being wet, even though he's a little uphill, this one here, he's got, to me, is to put it, he's got 2 chances here. One, if he puts it at the hole and holds it there, or behind the hole and backs it up. I think this one here has got to get past the hole, because with any spin, it's going to back up on him and come down that slope. This is a nice arm shot, and try to take the spin off it. Nope. Nope. It went just at a place it doesn't come back far enough.
It'll come back a little bit.
Not far enough. Came out a little bit lower than he wanted to because of the wet sand.
Now it's for Scott Hoch.
Greg Norman made bogey at 18 to go to 4. Crenshaw is looking at bogey. And at one time at 17 there are 4 players at 5 under. But right now this is Hoch's tournament to win. Everybody else has to watch,
including Nick Faldo, who is already finished and is 5 under, as is Hoch. Interested champion Sandy Lyle, who birdied this hole last year to win the tournament.
It is watching.
Probably with one of the best shots we've ever seen at 18 to win. And to get this many people around the 18th hole and hear it is just, the silence is deafening.
You can only hear the rain.
You know, you can go through a lot of things, Pat, and we've said it before, and once time Henry Longhurst said it, that when he's talking about a shot, that Scott Hoch very well knows what he has to do, and I guess right now there's nothing more to do than just watch.
Hold the cameras, please.
Firmer, he makes it. But again, as we said, Pat, it's a little conservative because he can't afford to just rip at it. He'll play another hole. He will go to 10. There are 2 for sure and 1 waiting. Now it's Scott Hoch and Nick Faldo at 5 under.
And maybe Ben Crenshaw.
Maybe Ben Crenshaw is right. This putt is a very difficult putt. There's a very subtle two-way break in this.
But as you said before, it's the world's best putter.
Not only does this test your stroke, it tests your nerves. He's made such good putts at 16 and 17. You keep making them. You know, how many can you make?
If you're Ben Crenshaw, you can make a lot.
Looking down from our tower here, Pat, looking down at the 10th green, they are just almost the whole gallery has moved now to the 10th hole, except the ones that have been here all day.
If he makes, there'll be 3 in the playoff. There are 2.
Yeah, we're going. You got the umbrella.
So they'll go back to 10 as the daylight permits. Hoch and Faldo. Ben Crenshaw, Greg Norman, both bogey the 18th. Crenshaw shot 71 today. And the playoff will commence very shortly. Nick Faldo and Scott Hoch will go to the 10th hole and begin the playoff with Crenshaw and Norman just 1 off the lead, and Ballesteros at -3 and Reid at 2.
A sudden death playoff at the Masters. Nick Faldo from Great Britain and Scott Hoch from Orlando, Florida, headed to the 10th tee now. Sudden death for the green jacket. Let's take a look now, Tom Weisskopf, at the finishing scores. Tommy Aaron and George Archer both having a good tournament here. Mark Calcavecchia, 76 in the final round. "52 players in all made the cut. Jody Mudd with a 66 today. Greg Norman, 66. Finishing at -4 and 1 back of a playoff. Nice round today by Jeff Sluman. And Lee Trevino with a 69. It appears he has made the top 24, which means he will be coming back to Augusta National. Top 24 receive exemptions for the following year. And of course, 60 Minutes will be coming up in its entirety here on CBS following the playoff. What about this playoff, Tom Weisskopf?
Well, they've picked one of the most difficult holes on the golf course to begin with. It's a very demanding, difficult par 4, 485 yards downhill, slight dog leg to the left. One of the smaller greens on the golf course, so when you're playing your second shot, you have a very small target to play to, but it is a demanding hole.
Well, the format used to be 18 holes, but since 1979, well, that was the first year they had a sudden death playoff, and that was the year Fuzzy Zeller won on the 11th green, knocking out Tom Watson. Ed Snead had also participated in that sudden death playoff. So that was 10 years ago, the first time we had one of those coming down to, well, it could come down to 1 hole. That year it took 2 holes. But here we are headed to 10, and who better to comment about Nick Faldo, perhaps, than one of his neighbors in Surrey, England, our defending champion, Sandy Lyle. And Sandy, thank you for joining us. And what about Nick's game? Now, we know he was in the playoff last year, the 18-hole playoff at the U.S. Open before losing to Curtis Strange. He's been finished now for about 40 minutes. What do you expect we'll see from Nick?
I think you'll see some good drives, first of all. I think the main thing really between the two players is the second shot. Nick hits the ball very cleanly. He's hit the long irons very well. So I kind of fancy he'll be very good with his second shot to the 10th hole.
Well, he changed putters today after coming out and finishing up his 3rd round. He was 2 over, went out and shot a brilliant 65 here in the 4th round. And I've got to think that perhaps he feels like he's got things going after the way he performed on the back 9 today, did Nick Faldo.
Yes, right. He's been putting very well, and 18th hole had a good chance of making birdie there. But I think he must be feeling very pleased with himself and looking forward to maybe having a good effort to win the tournament.
Well, Scott Hoch has been out on the tour for over 10 years, and Tom, he has never participated in a playoff. So what kind of effect do you think that'll have on him?
Oh, tremendous. There's a lot of pressure. He has the advantage, though, of just coming off the golf course, going immediately to the 10th hole, whereas Nick has been really waiting for almost 45 minutes now. So we're going to go out to the tee right now, the 10th tee, and bring in Bob Murphy.
Oh, there they come. Scott Hoch, of course. That's P.J. Boatwright of the United States Golf Association. And they're going to have a little flip of the coin here to decide who will play first.
Playing. Good luck to you.
Scott certainly seems to be congenial enough. Nick's had a while to think about this. Ken Ventura, your thoughts?
Well, they came up, they're both smiling, they're very happy to be in a playoff. I know Nick Faldo is, Bob, and of course you look back at 17, we're thinking of that putt that would have been the champion, would have been Scott Hoch.
Scott. Nick is going to play first.
The toss was won by Nick Faldo.
Right. Well, Nick's only been in one playoff in the U.S., and that, of course, when he lost to Curtis Strange in 1988. That, however, Kenny, was a 18-hole playoff, and this is sudden death.
Well,
here we're seeing how the hole is played. Average score 4.3. It's a very tough hole, and of course the wind, for the most part of the week, was the tough part of the golf hole.
I was watching Faldo when he was practicing the other day, and Faldo really is very comfortable with a left to right shot.
Well, this hole calls for the right to left, down the hill, hopefully in the valley.
He left it out to the right a little bit. I don't know if that will come down as much, Murph. It's going to be the right side of the fairway, and I don't think it's going to catch that slope.
It didn't. It's up on the hill, and that'll be a difficult stance. Very difficult stance. He's standing with his feet down, leaning towards the green. Very difficult shot. Scott can place himself at a great advantage here. Get it down the hill. Good driver.
He's going to love that. That is right on target, Murph.
Looked like he nailed it right straight away.
He took it right to left, and they call him a left to right player. That is perfect draw.
That's beautiful. It's right down in the bottom. He's got himself about 160 yards to the front edge of the green. So advantage Scott Hoch right here. And the playoff is on. Both boys getting a little nervous, but they're on their way down the hill. We'll be back.
In golf, there's no more pressure than a sudden death playoff for the green jacket. And that's what's happening now for Nick Faldo and Scott Hoch. And what a charge by Faldo. And we pick up now some of the highlights of his round. And this was at 16.
An unbelievable putt here, Jim, from about 18 feet down the hill, extremely fast. Fantastic.
That moved him at that point to 4 under. If you like that one, how about the one at 17?
Even a more difficult putt, I think, putting up through a transition area, up on top, on a slope, fast breaking. Had it maybe not hit the dead center of the hole, that putt really could have almost gone off the green.
Nick Faldo birding 4 of the final 6 holes to go to 5 under par and into the playoff. Now, after a brilliant shot from behind the green, Scott Hoch for par. He was 6 under at this point in time.
Yes, and I think he just tentatively pulled this putt just a little bit, left it outside, never took the break, and
well, that dropped him to that 5 under figure. That got him in the playoff with Faldo. Nick Faldo played the majors last year better than any other player in the world. 2nd at the U.S. Open, 3rd at Royal Lytham in the British Open, and 4th at the PGA. Let's go back out to the 10th hole. Bob Murphy.
Well, on tour, Ken Venturi, we usually say that the guy with the hot hand for the day and is the winner in most playoffs. And in this case, it's advantage Faldo. But I don't like where he is back on top of that hill. He's approximately 205 yards, is he not, Kenny, to the front edge? He's approximately 205 to the front edge. We've lost Ken's mic momentarily. It's a long shot. You're standing below the ball. Your left foot is downhill as well. You have to be very careful not to pull this ball way left of the green. To be a good shot. Oh, he's in the bunker in front. Just short. Not surprising. That's a very tough stance there from on top of the hill. Now it's back to advantage Scott Hoch. The 2 players, incidentally, have both made par in all 4 rounds on number 10. Scott, it appears, has some casual water problems. He's pacing around looking for a little help. He'll be asking for a drop. He seems casual enough, pacing a bit, trying to get his thoughts. Tom Weiskopf, Faldo had a very difficult shot from the top of the hill.
I would say, Bob, it was almost virtually impossible to hit the green, the odds of hitting the green. I'm not saying that he couldn't have, but it would have taken his supreme effort to put that ball on the green, especially with a long iron.
Right. There you can see the difference in the drives. Faldo had approximately 230 yards to the hole from a most difficult stance.
Hello.
And Scott Hoch has approximately 190 left. So he'll be hitting 5-iron, maybe 4. Still waiting for the approval on the drop.
Bob, the shot that Faldo had, he was 213 yards, which made it so difficult. The ball was above his feet, and plus his left foot was lower than his right. And I guess the natural tendency on that is to keep him overhooking it, and he blocked it out to the right a little bit. But he had a long, very, very difficult shot.
Yeah, he certainly did. We all know that if you miss the 10th green to the left, it bounces very hard left because the hill slopes that way. And once it takes off, it goes down towards the scoreboard, and you've got yourself a lot of problems. We can be bothered by a light problem here, the same as we were yesterday. That's partially what shut us down yesterday, was the light with the delay in play.
Bob, if there should be a playoff, we'll be back. If we don't get a chance to finish the playoff, is what I should say, we'll be back at 10 o'clock tomorrow to continue our coverage. Scott Hoch at 10 and Bob Murphy.
Nick, of course, is a bit concerned about what he's just done. Scott's taken a little bit more time probably than Nick would like. He's been waiting a long time anyway in the clubhouse, so he's had a lot of time to gather his thoughts. Scott now ready to play. You want to be most careful and get your club dry. Make sure your glove is dry. Well, I think we saw Ben Crenshaw. His club got away from him on 18. A little wet. Somehow it slipped.
Murphy's got a 4-iron.
Scott's taking a 4-iron, so he's coming all the way to the hole.
Right on track, Murph. It's going to be a little bit dry the hole, but it's right on track.
And it's a good shot. It's on the green safely. Some 30 feet short of the hole. Makeable putt. So darkness is pushing the play off, but Nick Faldo and Scott Hoch are involved in the most serious event here.
Hello, Steve, can you hear me? Okay. All right. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I've got like a 10-second scripted lead to that. Yes, sir.
Ken Venturi, can you get close enough to?
What's that, Mark?
Can you get close enough to look at that lie?
Yeah, I'll be right over there. It looks fine from here, Murph. It's clean.
Okay.
Except the ball is going to be below his feet a little bit.
There was quite a bit of water in that.
Well, on the first hole of a sudden death playoff, Scott Hoch is on the green, but Nick Faldo is in a greenside bunker. And let me ask Sandy Lyle, what kind of bunker player is Nick Faldo?
Well, Nick's a very good bunker player, and you can see he's got a pretty good lie there. So, you know, it's difficult to say what can happen out of here now, but he could knock it to within 2-3 feet, and then you've got Hoch putting as well. He could knock it 3 feet past, and he could be down to the 3-footers in the end.
All right, Sandy, let's go back out now to my colleague Bob Murphy at 10.
Ken Venturi's down by the bunker. You want to describe that stance a little bit, Ken?
Murphy, just took a look at it, and the ball is sitting. You can see a little bit of water, and it's very smooth because the rain has washed some of it down. But the ball will be below his feet. The bunker has to be very firm, and this ball should come out lower and faster than if the sand was soft.
Under ordinary circumstances, not a tough bunker shot. And I think you could hear at home that the sand was very wet. Surprised Nick. caught his club, took it straight down, and as a result, he's left himself way short.
Murph, that sand was just packed with the water and the sand. It was compacted, and it was, in fact, you could hear the sound, the thud of the club. It was very difficult to get the club through the ball.
So now it's back advantage Scott Hoch. If I'm Scott Hoch, I don't get too brave here. I'm going to nurse this up with the slope in this green. We've seen so many players this week, 3-putting from everywhere. I want to lag this up somewhere around the hole. If she falls in, terrific, but I'm going to get my par and then let Mr. Faldo have his go.
Don't you feel, Murph, with the conditions when you're just trying to 2-putt, looks like 2-putt's going to win. He's coming uphill. It's still damp after the rain, and trying to get it close, you're going to leave this one short more times. You're going to hit it fast.
That's true. I don't want to be tentative, Kenny. I want to try to get it up around the hole.
And if anything, I would give it a little more air. I'd give it a little more break than he sees, because I would rather have it die towards the hole than I would have that thing start slipping away, because you've seen these things slip away all day.
That's very true. However, of course, we've been watching under much different circumstances when the greens were a little faster than they are right now because of all the rain. It's really getting dark. You know, you can see Scott squinting. Yesterday, he made the comment that he really didn't want to play, and he asked to have play stopped because it got so dark, asking Nick to tap his coin down. You can see he's shielding, trying to get a little better vision if he can.
If he's having him tap the coin down, then he has got a perfect line of what he wants to do, because he's got the coin. That coin, Nick Faldo's ball, is halfway between the hole and Scott Hoch. So he has a perfect little line to hit it by, and that's what he's looking at.
Right.
Go.
It's got to hurry.
Get in there!
That's no gimme, Murph.
It's a tough spot to leave it up above the hole.
That's where you don't want to go past. He came.
It's amazing how sometimes, Kenny, the smallest putt can loom awfully large. I feel certain on 17 when Scott had a 4 or 5 footer for par, that Crenshaw rammed in that 35 footer. That putt gets a little longer quickly.
Well, this putt of Faldo's, if he happens to make it, will make Scott Hoch a little bit longer, but I don't know how you can explain to the viewers that the pressure that's going, it's on these two players for the Masters Championship.
And it's very dark. The picture that we see on our screen is deceiving because the cameras give you an awful lot of extra light.
If this does go in and they do tie, I think they will try to get one more hole in.
I believe you're right. This putt will break from Nick's right to his left. A real good speed putt.
Well, he saw the line, Murph, because it went right over his coin.
Scott Hoch holding his breath.
Go.
He's outside of Hoch. He's outside of Scott Hoch, isn't he, Murph?
Yes, I believe he is. But he had to get that one there, Kenny. He had to give it a go.
There was no time to leave it short.
That's right. A lot of pressure. I guarantee you, your hands are bouncing around. It's hard to spot a ball sometimes when you're playing for a major championship. Faldo, of course, now would have to be frustrated inside his head. Scott Hoch is saying, boy, I've got a 3-footer downhill for everything. All that we work for all the time, all we think about, dream about. Mom and the baby's at home, nervous.
He's giving this a good look, because I'll tell you what, he hasn't given Scott Hoch his putt, and he's not going to just about rush this one. He still has hopes. He makes this, there's still a chance. Well, it's down to 1 putt now, Murph.
That's right. This putt throughout the day. Now, if I can tell you one thing, Ken Venturi, I've seen this putt missed off to the right. The players want to play it straight, and if they hit it too easy, it will go off to the player's right as we're looking at it. You can see that Scott is taking his time. He's not about to rush this putt.
No, not when it's for the Masters, and not for any tour event, but not for a major. He knows that. He's what, 2 feet, Murph? A little over 2 feet, maybe?
Right.
And that's just 24 inches away from a green coat.
Which is a career.
A lifetime.
A career in one putt. Faldo studying, shaking his head a bit, obviously disappointed. Straight and firm, Scott, right in the heart. He's missed it, and he's knocked it. He's knocked it 3.5 feet past the hole.
I don't believe it. I do not believe it.
Oh, boy.
He has got to gather himself now,
Yes.
Murph. He's got to, because the people are beginning to run. They're running down to 11. He's missed the putt. He's thinking about 17.
We had a picture, Kenny. He just picked his putter up and kissed it and said, "Come on, girl, don't let me down right here now."
This putt, Murph, I've seen this putt many times, and I'll tell you what, he missed it on the left coming down, hit it too firm, but this one here will slip fast to the left. If you just mishit this a hair, you'll miss it to the left.
Yeah, because it's back uphill and it's much slower. Scott's got to take 2 or 3 deep breaths here.
You called it right when you said straight in and take it straight back and put it in.
Boy, what a game we play.
It's never over.
All right, I'm glad to see that. All right, we go to 11 and you, Steve Melnick. Disappointed, but it's still not over. He's just wondering why, how. He is having trouble seeing. I don't think there's any doubt about it. He's squinting badly, and he's a little nervous. Down to you, Jim Nantz.
All right, thank you, Bob Murphy. And again, a chance to remind everyone that 60 Minutes is coming up next after the sudden death playoff is concluded, should it conclude tonight. 60 Minutes coming up in its entirety. And Tom Weiskopf, who would have ever thought that both players would suffer bogeys on the first playoff hole and this thing would continue?
Well, it's a game of momentum, and the advantage was totally in Scott Hoch's hands through the entirety of that hole.
I'm on the 11 tee now.
And number 11 now, I really think the advantage now goes to Nick Faldo.
You made an observation, Sandy, that you felt that Scott was perhaps taking a little too long before he had that putt for the win.
I think he just he's playing outside his own rhythm. I think the main thing now is to stay cool and just play within yourself and do your normal procedures. I think at the moment now he's at least doubled his time on surveying the putt, and I think he's just lost it a bit.
All right, so we're headed back down to Amen Corner, and Tom, perhaps tell us what we're going to see here at 11. This is a tough hole.
Well, it's a very difficult, again, long par 4 down the hill. Very wide fairway. I think most of the players will favor the left half of the fairway when they play this hole. There's a pond that guards the left side of the green, and the pin is in a very difficult place. Again, I wouldn't think that a birdie is something that is going to beat you on this hole. We'll turn it over to Steve Melnick, though, now.
So Nick Faldo can breathe a little easier after the missed putt from Hoch. Steve Melnick is the man on the scene at 11, Steve.
All right, Jim. 11th hole, playing 455 yards, and every bit of that as these cold, wet conditions make this otherwise difficult par 4 that much harder. Faldo, surprisingly, has not parred this hole in 4 rounds, has made 4 bogeys in 4 outings here.
Left side, Steve, left side of the fairway.
Kenny, actually the better side to be. You can only imagine what thoughts must be going through Scott Hoch's minds, having to sort through that miss. You know, he came to the last hole, the 72nd hole at the 1987 PGA Championship, had a short putt to tie and 3-putted, and very nearly 3-putted the 10th. But it's Faldo and Hoch with bogey 5s at the first playoff hole for the 53rd Masters title.
We're on the second hole of a sudden death playoff for the green jacket. Nick Faldo, 31-year-old out of Surrey, England, and Scott Hoch from Orlando, Florida, on the second hole of the sudden death playoff. And Tom, I've got to ask you, how much will this putt weigh on Scott Hoch's mind now as he had the green jacket within his grasp?
A lot, but you have to get that thought immediately out of your mind.
Actually had a longer putt coming back to stay in it. And he successfully negotiated the final 3 feet of that one.
I think it's really going to put a lot of pressure on Scott in playing his second shot. It really gets down to who's going to play first, Jim. I think the player that's going to play second is going to get a lot of vibes off of how the player who has just played feels. He'll relate to where this player has played his shot into the green, and then he'll make his choice. Now, do I remain conservative or do I attack the pin?
Well, Tom, of the other 3 sudden death playoffs here at the Masters, 2 of them ended right here at 11. Fuzzy Zoeller winning in 1979 with a birdie, and of course Larry Mize from off the green in 1987 on this very same 11th hole. And let's go back out to 11 now. Steve Melnick.
All right, Jim Nance.
They're going for
casual water, Kenny.
Steve, they're looking at casual water in this whole area where Faldo is all water, but I don't think he's going to find much more than this. The whole fairway is covered a little bit.
Well, this is the 4th sudden death playoff at the Masters. Stadler defeated Dan Pohl in 1982 with a par at the 10th hole. Of course, Fuzzy Zoeller in the first year they had a sudden death playoff, birdied this, the 11th hole, to defeat Ed Snead and Tom Watson in 1979. Of course, it was here 2 years ago, Larry Mize with a stunning pitch shot, which eliminated Greg Norman in that dramatic win. And now they come to 11 once again with darkness fading here at Amen Corner. Each player played the 10th as though neither wanted to win.
Steve, how far is the pin back from the front of the green today?
Kenny, the flagstick is 27 paces from the front of the green.
And Faldo is 177 yards to the front of the green. So his shot here is
202.
202. And I wouldn't think anything again. You just can't get out of the norm. I think you've got to give it air to the right. You just can't afford to fool with put it in the water. So I think you're going to see this ball, especially because he's going way, way right, gives him a pretty good angle on the right-hand side. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Scott Hoch go right at the flag because he's going over the water and the greens are soft. He's got a perfect angle.
Well, and two, Scott Hoch's misses are to the right. If he takes enough club, he can fire at the flagstick, and if the ball drifts right, he's safe. Faldo now is playing toward the water. Now, Kenny, he has bogeyed this hole each trip here this week, 4 consecutive 5s. That's Andy Prodger, his longtime caddy. Andy was with Nick when he won the British Open in '87.
What would have been the odds, Steve, for you to think that he would miss that putt at number 10?
We were packing up our bags, Kenny. That's what we thought about it. 3-iron for Faldo. He played a good long iron at 10, despite the fact that he found the bunker.
Wait a minute. Take a look at this one, Steve.
That's better than good, Kenny.
I'm going to tell you what, that is some gutsy play. He just took it right at it and didn't even fool with it.
Well, he got a new lease on life.
That's right.
Hoch opened the door. Faldo's trying to slam it shut. Scott Hoch now just under 200 yards out.
That's going right, and is going to may miss the green to the right, Steve.
He's not as far right or as far long as Mize was, but it's certainly reminiscent of that spot. We're in sudden death at Augusta National. This is the 53rd Masters. Nick Faldo and Scott Hoch seeking a green jacket.
Well, it's hard to argue the Masters is the most coveted title in golf. And the drama and tension doesn't get any higher than right now. A sudden death playoff now on the second hole, which is the 11th hole for the playoff system here at Augusta National. After bogeys at 10 by Scott Hoch and Nick Faldo, they are on the 11th hole as we go back through the history here at Augusta National.
Jim, when you're under enormous pressure, as these two players are, you still have to make a golf swing. And it was very evident, if you compare the two swings, Faldo made a beautiful, aggressive, classic swing. And then the other player, Scott just got up there and just came off the ball, and it looked like he was afraid of the shot. He didn't make his swing. And it's tremendous pressure they're under, and now the advantage definitely is in Faldo's hands.
And of course, Faldo had to feel like the momentum went back to his side after Hoch let him right back in it with a short miss, that 2-footer at 10.
And Kenny can tell us just how tough this shot is. It appears to be easy, but it's difficult.
I've been right down here, Tommy, and I took a look at the slope. It goes a little bit from right to left, but this one here is, once it gets moving, as we've seen so many times, it keeps moving itself, finds its way to the back of the green all the time. He has, I would say 30 feet to clear the fringe. And then he's got about, I'd say, 45 feet to the hole. He's taken a lofted club. It looks like it's the same club he used at the 17th hole. So he's going to pitch this, I would say, a good, I would figure about 10 feet on the green and then let it roll.
Well, Kenny, he likes to spin or nip his pitch shots, and he's apparently going to do the same thing here.
Watch out, that's going to go checking up. He can really spin it. But there's another tester right there. He's left himself, I would say, 6 feet, Steve.
Well, he missed the short putt at 17 after the brilliant chip for par, which might have slammed the door shut for everyone. And, of course, the putt at the last. And obviously, Faldo has that on his mind. It was a putt a little bit shorter than this that Fuzzy Zeller made in 1979 to eliminate Ed Snead and Tom Watson, the flagstick, a little bit further back than it was 10 years ago. Faldo and Hoch each playing in his 6th Masters. Until this year, they had only broken 70 once, and that is 69. The first round here, each broke 70. The last round here, each broke 70. All bogeys for Faldo. A chance to redeem himself in sudden death.
All he wants to do is get it close. Falls in, it's a plus, as we say, but put it back on Scott Hoch's shoulders.
There it is!
Can you believe it?
Nick Faldo!
That ball was moving at a pretty good rate, too, Steve.
Nick Faldo now with 2 major championships to his credit. He was given a reprieve at the 10th. Took advantage of it here at 11. Nick Faldo, the 1989 Masters champion.
Believe that.
Michael Bonalic, longtime friend. Andy Prodger, longtime caddy. He played the right shot at the right time, Kenny. A superb iron that made this victory possible.
I'll tell you, Steve, I don't care as long as I play here, as long as we play golf, I believe there's destiny. He was meant to win because it was Scott Hoch's tournament at number 10, and then he turns around and puts it right back and makes a putt at 11, but he played a brilliant shot into this green. I mean, that was, he took it straight on.
Well, this is a man that had not parred this hole all week long, 4 consecutive fives, and then the sudden death birdie. He won it like a champion. Let's go down to the Butler cabin and Jim Nance.
In what may be his last Masters tournament, Lee Trevino's 67 placed him on top of the leaderboard. It was a ray of hope in a tournament he has never mastered. But the shot of the day belonged to Tommy Nakajima at the 17th hole. An eagle for Nakajima, and the first round was complete. Friday, however, was a day unfit to fly. Swirling winds kept things cool and scores high. Leader Nick Faldo would lose 2 strokes in the final 3 holes. And a baffled Ballesteros would 3-putt from 3 feet and settle for 7 at the 15th hole. And Lee Trevino, well, he continued his dip in the fountain of youth. A 74 was good enough to keep him tied with Faldo for the lead through 36 holes. Yesterday, the Shark made his move. Greg Norman's 68 was the round of the day as he circled once again for a final strike. But the tournament now was in the hands of Ben Crenshaw as he built a 4-stroke lead over the rest of the field. And just when it seemed no one could stop Crenshaw, the elements did. Play was suspended for more than an hour and a half by the rain, and the day ended with the 3rd round incomplete. Early today, they cleared what the overnight rain had wrought. Crenshaw finished his 3rd round with this bogey putt at 18. That left Crenshaw 1 up on the field with 18 holes left to play. And on the front 9 of the 4th round, Seve Ballesteros on his 32nd birthday went out in 31, came home in 38, and did not claim his 3rd green jacket. Mike Reid led at one point until knocking it into the water at 15. Greg Norman, who was charging until a bogey at 18 did him in. And Ben Crenshaw charged with birdies at 16 and 17. Failed to par the 18th. Nick Faldo with a final round 65 enabled him to get into a playoff, birding 4 of the final 6 holes in regulation. And Scott Hoch, he shot a 69 in the 4th round. Nick Faldo on the 2nd hole of sudden death wins the green jacket. It's the 3rd time a sudden death playoff has been decided on this green, and all 3 times by birdies. We watch the reaction of the Masters champion, Nick Faldo, 31-year-old from Surrey, England. We'll return to Augusta, Georgia with the green jacket ceremony in just a moment. Well, we're waiting for the return of our new Masters champion, Nick Faldo, who's making his way back toward the clubhouse to the adjacent Butler cabin as we look at the top 24-plus ties. All of these golfers have qualified for next year's Masters. And in that group, you can include Lee Trevino, who's 69 in the final round, got him back for one more go-round. Some had said at the age of 49 that this could be Trevino's final Masters. He had run out of exemptions dating back to his victory in the PGA at Shoal Creek. But an outstanding week it was for Lee Trevino. Now let's go back one more time and look at the winning putt for Nick Faldo. We'll be back with our winner, Nick Faldo, when we return to Augusta, Georgia. Yet another dramatic finish to the Masters, a sudden death playoff. And I'm now joined by the chairman of this Masters tournament, Mr. Howard Harden. Also here with us is the 1988 Masters champion, Sandy Lyle, and the winner, Nick Faldo. And Mr. Harden, once again, we've had an excellent tournament this year.
It was rather special, I'd say. Of course, we're here, as you know, to confer upon our winner an honorary membership in this club. Normally, we have a chance to visit with the low amateur, but this year, unfortunately, no amateur made the cut. But I'm sure you've got some questions you want to ask both of these gentlemen.
Yes, I do indeed, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And Nick, usually there's a one shot that turns it around for a golfer. What was it today for you?
Gee, but I had so many. I made some very fluky putts on 1 and 17, and that one on 16 was so reminiscent of Sandy of last year, but I think mine was harder. I mean, I was off the green with a little bit of mud on it, and gosh, it's just a dream.
Did it ever come to mind that last year you'd been in the playoff at the U.S. Open, and now here you are in another major championship and a playoff again?
Yeah, I did. I certainly did. You know, but I just tried to keep myself relaxed and said, well, you know, you're in it, play hard, and I was certainly believing that I was going to do it, and to make a 3 on 11, I've made 4 5s on that hole, and
bogey all 4 days.
Yeah, bogey all 4 days, and I looked at that putt and I thought, well, if we carry on, we won't be able to see the pin at the next, and then we're going to have all sorts of problems. So, not that was, and it went in, you know.
Well, let me take you back to 10, the first hole of the sudden death playoff, and Scott Hoch has the chance for victory. And what was going through your mind at that point?
It's very difficult to say. I mean, he stands up, he's got a putt, and you say to yourself, he's got that to win. And I just stood there and looked, and I wasn't thinking anything. You never pull against a guy or anything, and
well,
he misses it. Yeah.
It was a great putt at 11 for victory. And Nick, congratulations. And Mr. Chairman, it's time now for our traditional green jacket presentation.
Well, Sandy, as you know, it's customary for the defending champion to put the new jacket on our new winner. And would you do the honors?
Yeah, pleasure. 44 large, 44 long.
43.
43?
Congratulations.
Thanks, Sandy.
Tremendous.
Thanks so much.
Cold hands and everything.
Everything's cold. Oh, I'm all tied up. Oh, well.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Welcome
Thank you.
here.
Thanks, Howard.
Thank you.
Nick Faldo, with a performance that has earned him the title that so many in this great sport of golf strive for. Masters champion with this putt on the second hole of a sudden death playoff. And at this moment, from Augusta National, Nick Faldo is on top of the golf world. He is the Masters champion. And for all of us at CBS Sports, this is Jim Nance saying good night.